Hello everyone, I am Zazubaar, and welcome to this week's episode of The Demons from Outer Space. Joining me as always, Super DM64.
Hello all.
Dylan, this is a big show, dude. Big show. You know why? Dylan, tell him why.
Because it's... yeah, I don't know. It's number 24. It's a big...
Because it's Thursday. No,
it's a big number. No.
It's always a big show on Thursday.
No, we are 7 days away from the...
7 days away from potentially the biggest event in the history of the world, ever.
I'm going to be extra cautious over the course of this next week, because if I die before Thursday, that would be a major drag.
Oh, God. It's like, no, that can't happen.
That would be a major drag. I'm seeing this movie at 7 o'clock next Thursday, and knowing my luck, I'm going to, choke on a chicken bone at, 6:30. I just know it. Right?
Well, I gotta be careful, because we're having a party in my place right before. And for those of you who are ignorant of what's happening next Thursday, what event is occurring, what the motion picture event of the century that is happening next Thursday is the brand new Godzilla film put out by Legendary Pictures, directed by Gareth Edwards, starring Aaron Taylor Johnson, Bryan Cranston, and the Big G himself is dropping in theaters. And as you can tell, we are quite enthusiastic about this movie. It's not like I've devoted my channel to it for the past 4 years or anything.
No. It's not like we have a series of podcasts that partly grew out of another series of videos in which we talked about this movie.
This movie has kind of brought our group together in many ways. I mean, the first video I did with David, which kind of is the origin of SOS, was on this movie, and the reason why I even bothered starting to do videos with people from the internet was because of Legendary Pictures Godzilla. So it's very important in the story of my life. So even if it sucks, I will at least owe it for that. Have you thought about that? What if this movie is horrible? What that would do?
That would be a problem for me.
It would crush me. It might be the worst thing that ever happened to me. And I've had family members die and major tragedies in my life, but that would mean I've wasted hours, weeks of the last 4 years of I would feel betrayed in many ways, but
worse than that, it would mean that I wasted my money on not only the movie tickets but Awakening and the Art of Destruction.
Did you get the hardcover for Awakening?
No, I got the digital copy.
Did you get it yet?
No, it's coming in next week.
Yeah, mine too. I got the hardcover edition, so I don't get mine until after the movie comes out, which I'm kind of glad about because it forces me to wait.
I don't buy physical books anymore.
You're the problem with this fucking country, Dylan. Buying fucking your witchcraft digital books in the cloud. What is it, the demon's cloud?
Yes, the demon's.
The devil's cloud? Is your cloud headed by Satan?
I do not know. I would not be surprised.
What would you do?
I would be like...
Not that I believe any of that, but let's say it was true and Satan controlled the cloud. Would you still use the cloud?
If the Amazon cloud were run by Satan, I think it would give me pause, but then again, the prices are just too good.
You see, I would be like, well, maybe I have to reconsider Satan. And I mean, not only that, but reconsider my entire outlook on religion and life, but also to discover that he was a real thing. But more than that, I would also have to consider good and evil, because he's running such a cheap service and a really helpful service. So I don't know. Is he evil? I mean, what's he doing with this cloud? Is he using it to control people or something, or destroy realms?
Has he given up on his quest for the domination of the souls of man, and
he's given up on being the bane of all, on punishing the evil and shit, and has decided to run an internet business?
He's like, look, I've read the end of the Bible. I know how it's going down. I'm not winning this shit. I give up.
Listen, we've all seen Star Wars. We all know what happens to evil. I went for millions of years just basing my entire existence on being a dick, and then I saw fucking Star Wars, and I saw what happens to the Emperor. There ain't no rest for the wicked.
I think I'm going to give up and pursue something in the private sector.
I believe I am going to instead create cheap, affordable internet services that everybody will use. So I'll still have control over people's souls, but I won't really be doing evil things with them as much as greedy things with them.
I mean,
and if you consider that evil, then consider capitalism in general.
I mean, nobody takes me seriously anymore. I was played by Tim Curry.
Right?
Yeah. No.
I mean, nobody's looking at the devil and going, yeah, evil. Everybody looks at me and goes, hey, isn't that the guy who fucked Saddam Hussein in the mouth?
Yeah, pretty much.
In that South Park motion picture. So, I mean, what am I supposed to do? I mean, am I just going to keep doing this? I mean, I tried to tempt Jesus, and he fucking shot me down. What am I supposed to do? I don't get no respect. The devil, played by Rodney Dangerfield.
Indeed.
But aside from the devil running the cloud, so to speak, Dylan, we're going to fucking talk about Godzilla tonight.
We are. No more devils.
No more devil talk, no more Doctor Who talk. We're going to at least try to spend the next hour and a half discussing nothing but Godzilla-related shit. And we're going to do something that we said we were going to do about... Well, you listened to it today. Was it episode 15? So about 10 episodes ago?
I believe it was 15.
So roughly 2 months ago, we discussed the idea of... since we were talking about Watch Mojo's top 10 favorite Godzilla movies list, or best Godzilla movies, and we decided to do our own, and we were going to do it the following week, but I said, no, let's push it back and instead do it to celebrate the release of the new movie.
It is episode 15. Mothra is Jesus.
Yeah. So it's 9 episodes technically, because this is 24. But whatever. 10's a nice round number, and I decided to go with it. So judge me. Fuck you.
So 2 months ago, maybe even a little longer, because haven't we skipped weeks occasionally?
Yeah. So it's even more so. So a long time ago, in a podcast far, far away, we decided to do this, and we're going to do it now.
Yeah, I think.
And we're going to do.
I think at the time the idea was we were going to do it the following week, and.
Right, we were going to do it the following week, but we decided to push it back in order to commemorate the release of Godzilla. And since we're probably not going to do the show next week unless you want to switch the day, but we'll talk about that later. Most likely we won't do one next week because of the release of Godzilla and because we both got plans. Where was I going with this? So the idea is now this week, the week before Godzilla, we're going to do our big G celebration and discuss all things Godzilla related. So what we've decided to do is tonight to do Dylan and I's top 5 favorite Godzilla movies list. Now I have done this a couple of times in a couple of different places. I did this once on Adam's channel. I did it once on my channel, and I think I did it again on my channel at some point. And of course I've reviewed all the Godzilla movies in detail, so I've kind of ranked them in that way. Have you ever recorded or posted publicly your list of your top Godzilla movies?
Not really. I don't think so. No.
So this is like fucking first look. Like this is a peek into the secret life of Dylan McCandless. I don't even know this shit. I don't know what Dylan's top 5 Godzilla movies are. So this is gonna be cool for me. I've never seen you do this, so it's gonna be kind of cool. Now just to let people know what we're kind of going to do with this list. We've decided to, I don't know about you, but I went more for favorite as opposed to what I think are the objectively best 5 Godzilla movies.
Yeah, I was gonna make a disclaimer about this as well. The rankings on my list are not determined by objective goodness alone. If they were, this list would look entirely different. That is certainly a factor. However, many other things were considered, such as nostalgia,
right.
The monsters themselves, human casts, things like that.
Right.
And overall, the question that I asked myself while making the list was, which ones do I rewatch the most often?
That was what I asked as well, was which one of these would I not mind popping in right now? And that's what my list is based on, because to me that's the determination of favorite. If you want to keep rewatching it, if you keep enjoying it despite having seen it a million times, to me that's the mark of you clearly enjoy this. So that's, to me, what I constituted this list out of.
Also, I'm not sure if my list is 100% accurate, because we were doing a top 5 as opposed to a top 10. Right. There are some of these that might be moved around if I was doing a top 10. I don't know, because I tried to get like a general feel of just like my favorites and like what that entails. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. The other thing is that this was incredibly hard.
It is incredibly hard.
Because there's no one Godzilla movie, well, maybe there's like 2 or 3, where I'm like, I hate this. Or not even hate it, I just don't want to watch this. like to me, all of the Godzilla movies has something about them that I enjoy. Even you know what? I enjoy something about all of them, even the ones I don't like. Like even Mothra Battle for Earth, Godzilla vs. Hedorah, even Godzilla's Revenge. There's something about them that I enjoy.
There are only like 3 that I outright dislike, and those are Raids Again, Revenge, and I think the last one is Megaguirus. I think that one was.
I always forget about Raids Again. You know what? I actually like Raids Again less than which one do I like less, Hedorah or I think I like Raids Again less than Hedorah, because at least I like Hedorah.
Right.
And it's not like I don't like Anguirus, but Anguirus got better movies later, so it's not like it's just like this one movie where you've got Anguirus and then you've got to deal with that movie despite the quality. Like there's only one movie that has Hedorah in it.
I think
at least he's in Final Wars, but he's got like less than a second of screen time. So
obviously the other factor that goes into these lists is personal bias, because
absolutely,
when I just mentioned the 3 that I really don't care for overall, I think I'm a little harder on Megaguirus than is probably warranted. I look at it in comparison to the rest of Millennium, and I'm like, what happened?
It's also, Megaguirus is a extremely flawed movie, and I think what makes it worse is that it's got a promising beginning.
It's got some great ideas in it. We're basing an entire fan fiction series around one of those ideas.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not utter garbage. It's just not well made.
It's the same problem I have with Space Godzilla. I love so many of the ideas in Space Godzilla. Yeah. Something about the execution just doesn't work for me personally.
Yeah, same here. So we say that to say, if you disagree, more power to you. I mean, variation in the Godzilla fan community is encouraged beyond all belief. But this is more personal than... Because what Watch Mojo did was they kind of did an average of our staff picked these movies and we averaged them out and did a bunch of kind of objective kind of work to make it. These are, based on our estimates, the 10 best Godzilla movies. And, we discussed the validity of that and whether or not we agree, but that's the whole point. They think that's objectively the 10 best or most influential or whatever the fuck they used Godzilla movies.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them I thought were just weird, like, again, Astro Monster, Hedorah, examples like that. This is more like, I'm this person, and I like this, and these are aspects of Godzilla that I enjoy, and these movies, for the most part, reflect the aspects of Godzilla that I love. So bear that in mind while listening.
Yeah, that's really what I try to do with my top 5, is I try to get a nice little spread of all the different... Because there are different types of Godzilla films, which
absolutely, and I tried to get
which tends to happen when you have a series with like 38 installments. But
Godzilla has the same thing as James Bond. It goes through James Bond and Batman. It goes through major shifts in tone depending on the era.
So what I try to do is give little samplings of era and of the different kinds of Godzilla movies that I personally seem to enjoy and seem to rewatch the most often. Because again, my main question while making this list was not necessarily which ones do I think are better, which ones do I rewatch the most often.
Also understand that my list, at least my list, is extremely subject to change. I change this.
Mine as well. You ask me this tomorrow and it might be different. I don't know.
Yeah, likewise. And that just comes down to rewatching movies, based on my mindset and age and what's going on and just what I'm into at the moment. Like, I've just been on a major, like, Godzilla kick where Godzilla is the focal point. So if you listen to me in videos lately, I've been kind of hard on, like, 70s Godzilla. I'm like, fuck that shit, Godzilla's not the focal point, so I don't like it. That's just kind of like, it depends on what I'm into at the time. And right now, I'm obviously really into what appears to be Legendary's take on Godzilla. So
it's amazing how it affects like the actual viewing experience. Like, I don't know if you've had this, but there are some times when I'll watch a Godzilla movie and love it, and then I'll watch it again another time and not be blown away by it. It's weird. With the exception of 54, it's odd. For instance,
even 54, I'll go through different spells with, and not like, I don't like this movie anymore. More of like I like it for different reasons. I've been on a major classic movie stint lately, and I rewatched 54 about 2 weeks ago, and I fell in love with everything. All like the first 45 minutes of that movie to me are fucking fantastic. And I love the cinematography and the tone of it. That's an extremely brooding, atmospheric movie. And I really appreciated that aspect, but sometimes I'm more into the battle aspect of the military fighting Godzilla, and sometimes more into the historical aspect of the actual history of the Lucky Dragon incident and
give you a good example.
The bombings and all that kind of relate to what went into the making of the film.
Give you a good example. Godzilla versus Gigan. I've never really loved or hated Godzilla vs. Gigan. It's never been one of my favorites, but I certainly have always enjoyed it. But the last time I watched it, I enjoyed it a lot more than usual. I don't know why. I don't know what mindset I was in. But the last time I watched Godzilla vs. Gigan, now mind you, this was a few months back, I really enjoyed it in a way that I hadn't before.
Indeed. The last time I watched it was Godzilla Palooza. And I had the same reaction. I went into it expecting to be like, I don't like this. I've never liked this movie, and I'm not going to like it now, especially now that I'm being really critical on these movies. And I watched it, and I was like, oh God, that was fucking great. I mean, it was great for like really entertaining, kept my attention, and I think that the reason was because I had just watched Hedorah the day before, and Hedorah fucking drained the life out of me.
To me, it feels like Gigan does a lot of the same things that Hedorah tried to do, but almost sort of does it better.
I don't know if I agree with that. I feel like Gigan is harkening.
It feels like
what I think Gigan does that really makes it a refreshing ride after Hedorah is that it's such a fucking throwback to the early Showa Godzilla. It's such a throwback to like Ghidorah and Astro Monster.
Yeah, but at the same time, it has that sort of early 70s tone.
Right, but it's a very different part of the 70s they're going for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's clearly a 70s movie, and it's indicative, and it looks like the 70s, and it plays like the 70s, especially the James Bond parts of it. But it's a more kind of upbeat, like retro look at the 70s, like almost like a That 70s Show version of the 70s. Whereas, I guess kind of. I think Hedorah is a little bit more of like the darker subculture of the 70s. At least it tries to be. I'm not sure how successful it is at evoking that, but Hedorah is just a lot more experimental, and for some people that really works. Like, Adam loves it, but for me it's boring. And it remains to be the only Godzilla movie I watched for Palooza that I fell asleep during.
Hedorah is the way that Gigan used to be for me. It's one that I don't really love or hate. I don't know. I can't seem to form an opinion about it.
Well, to me, it just commits the ultimate sin of being boring, and I just can't get into it. And there's very few Godzilla movies that I watch I'm just painfully bored by.
To go back.
And it's that one, and it's Battle for Earth. Battle for Earth bores me to no end as well.
To go back to the James Bond comparison, that's my problem with Octopussy.
Yeah, likewise.
It's like, this isn't objectively horrible, I guess, but it bores me.
Yeah, that's it. It's like it's not. I think I talked about this with. I said this on Geeky Gentleman recently. We're talking about the American Doctor Who movies, the ones with Peter Cushing.
Oh God.
And I said they're not good enough to be great and not bad enough to make fun of. So that almost makes it worse. So I feel like both Gigan. Well, I think I like Gigan, but Hedorah kind of feels that way for me. Where I gave it an appropriate score. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 on Palooza. But it's boring, and it's not so. And I guess there are parts of that movie where it's bad enough to make fun of, but there aren't enough of them because there's so much really, really heavy metaphor and story going on that it's almost you just want to turn it off rather than sit there and make fun of it. I mean that's why Megalon is. I like Megalon more because it is able to be. Mm-hmm. Kind of poked fun at, and you're able to have fun with it despite whether or not it's actually good.
The fight scene in Gigan is really good as well.
Well, what I also love about, again, I just said this, it's harkening back to early Showa, both in the soundtrack and in the style of it, and it's all space shit, and it's all really espionage heavy, it's fast-paced, and the fights are big.
The thing that 70s Godzilla always has going for it is that the fights are always so memorable and
colorful.
Memorable, colorful, and all that is present in the Godzilla films previous as well. But there's just something. There's just something about the 70s.
Well, the 70s were just so filled with life. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so are the 60s, but it's a different kind of thing. Like the 60s takes itself more seriously. That's the classic. It's the golden five of Godzilla of the Godzilla team. Like you didn't have Honda in the 70s. You didn't have Sabraya in the 70s. Ifukube kind of came and went depending on the movie. So you didn't have that golden team. And And even Haruo Nakajima, his last movie was Hedorah, right? No, he did Terror of Mechagodzilla. I'm sorry, right?
I'm not sure.
Wait a minute, because you know what? I think he played Godzilla all the way through the 70s. But the thing was that he tried to quit. I know he definitely tried to quit because he didn't think they should continue making Godzilla after E.G. Sakurai died.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think Honda was the same way.
I'm not sure which one was his last. I'm looking at IMDb. Apparently his last appearance was in Megalon.
Okay, so I was right.
So he was gone by that.
Right. So I at least I was partially right. He didn't last all the way through the Showa series.
He was just too away, man. Too away.
He was just more of like, I just don't want to do this anymore because the man who I respected is gone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he would always make fun of like, oh, Sakurai was a hard ass, but he was also my boss and kind of a father figure to me. So
have you ever seen that short documentary type thing about the three Godzilla suit actors?
I have. It's awesome.
I love that thing. I haven't watched it.
Yeah, I love the ending where all three of them are walking down the street.
Yeah.
And just to be, I don't think that's all of the actors who had played Godzilla. Definitely not, because the guy who supposedly played him, at least partially in the original, is dead. So
no, those are just the three big ones.
Those are the three bigs who were consistent throughout.
It's Nakajima, the Heisei guy, and the Millennium guy. Right.
But the Millennium guy didn't do it in GMK though, because GMK was shot, I believe. At least I think they were still shooting when Against Mechagodzilla went into production.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was the whole thing, was Millennium Godzilla came out so quickly because they had different teams making Godzilla movies at the same time to get them out quickly.
Well, it's like Nakajima, he didn't do every single movie in Showa, as we've already... Did the Heisei guy get to do all the movies in his era?
I'm not sure. I know he wasn't supposed to play Godzilla in 84 because the suit wasn't built for him and he got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Because the suit wasn't made for him and he would like stumble over it and shit and suffocate and shit. I'm not sure if he did it every time, though.
I think, to me, and I would have to go back and rewatch all of them to say this for sure, which I'm not going to do because, A, I don't have the time right now.
We're kind of in the middle of a podcast, Dylan. I'd like to go watch Godzilla movies, too, but we're working right now.
To me, it seems like the suit acting in the Heisei series is pretty consistent.
I agree. I'm just not sure if it was the same guy every time. I'd have to look it up. But I'm pretty sure, aside from, I know GMK, because the thing about GMK is that it was made almost entirely with the Heisei Gamera crew.
Yeah.
Made GMK. He obviously had Shizuke Kaneko directing. You had Kawatone doing the score.
Now, was the suit actor they used in GMK, was he one of the suit actors from...
He played Gamera in the Heisei Gamera movies.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is kind of clear. I don't know why, but there's always, I was always, even as a kid, linking Heisei Gamera to GMK.
Well, it's weird. People always think, oh, it's a guy in a rubber suit, but you can really get those performances. Like I said, all of Heisei feels pretty consistent to me. I don't know for sure if that guy did all the movies, but they all feel consistent. You can always tell when it's Nakajima in the suit. There's just something about the way they carry themselves.
No, it's not an easy gig. I mean, people always fucking criticize Godzilla for being quick and cheap. It wasn't. I mean,
no, not at all.
It was definitely quicker and cheaper than stop motion, but that doesn't make it any less difficult to do well.
I mean, even look at Nakajima in Gargantua's, completely different creature design, completely different suit, completely different everything. It's still you can still get that feel. It still almost feels like you're watching him do Godzilla in a way.
I mean, it's still acting.
Yeah,
it's not like it's any less acting.
It's just like watching. Well, I don't know if Andy Serkis is a great example because he's one of those actors who is never the same.
No, he's also got there's more of an artsy-fartsy slant to what he does. And I'm not saying that Godzilla shouldn't be seen that way, but it's just not.
Right.
So I feel like he gets more credit and he gets more leeway to do the performance more to his liking than, say, Nakajima did.
Well, his performance naturally is going to come through a bit more since it's
right. His face is being brought to life on the character's face. Nakajima obviously didn't have that option.
Right. All Nakajima really got to control was body language. But in terms of body language, you can definitely see the differences between actors. It's interesting.
Well, the thing I've always say about Godzilla that in terms of those performances holding up, whether I'm a kid or not, is that you can't say that those things move like humans.
No.
Like, there was never a moment during my childhood where I said, that is a man in a rubber suit, or that is a person performing that creature. Like, even now, I watch some later Showa stuff, and I'm like, or like mid-Showa stuff, when Tsuburaya was at his peak, and it's just like, I can't watch that and go, that's a guy in a suit, because it's the way these things are moving. They look like they look comfortable in their own skin.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It doesn't look like a guy like fucking like lumbering around in a big rubber suit. It looks like these creatures they move how they move.
It feels very organic.
It does, and that's not always true. I mean, I feel like Megalon suffers a lot from these. They look like they're bumping into each other in big rubber suits.
Yeah.
But when it's done well, it's incredibly impressive. But anyway, we've kind of prolonged this as much as we can. So what do you say we get into our top 5 and we can discuss all this when we get into the movies in particular?
I think we've given all the disclaimers that we care to give.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else we need to say. Also, no, there's one major thing we haven't said, which we probably should have said first. 54 is a given. 54 is Dylan and I's favorite Godzilla movie, so we've decided to, for the sake of variety and for the sake of covering as many bases as possible, kind of make that the automatic best, kind of make that the buy. So for you sports enthusiasts out there,
Indeed.
as if we have those in our audience.
54 is number 1. So technically, my 1 through 5 list is technically 2 through 6.
Indeed.
But I'm not going to say it that way.
Right, because that's awkward. We don't. And again, it's just like, what can we possibly say about 54 that we haven't said already, or hasn't been said by somebody a lot more eloquent than us?
Right.
Particularly, I'm not saying I said it any more eloquently at all, but I did an hour review on the movie. I don't need to reinstate any of my feelings on fucking Gojira.
Oh.
I think I've said everything I need to say about that movie.
You want to know why Gojira is the best? Go listen to David Cowl's commentary, or if you want.
You want to hear somebody eloquently say it. He's a lot more, eloquent at it than I could ever.
Or if you want a much shorter version of it, go watch any of the interviews with Gareth Edwards. He does a pretty good job, I think.
Yeah, he's a big. Whenever somebody asks him about his take, he always is a big flag waver for the original. Which is something I respect.
I've been watching interviews with him most of today. because
I've been trying to avoid them, not because I think he's a bad speaker, though I think that him being a new director kind of shows.
And him being,
but obviously, I mean, that's a given. Not everybody is as comfortable.
And him being very British.
Yeah, very British, very shy. It just kind of bleeds through, but that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's like, what are you going to do if you're not used to public speaking? You're not used to public speaking. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that it's something you get used to over time. But I've more been avoiding them for I just don't want to know what his take is before I see it, which I suppose I've already spoiled myself on. But like at this point, I'm just trying to avoid as much spoilers as possible.
Well, he's always very good about not revealing too much.
But even his direction, I don't want to totally know. Like, I heard one thing that I wish I hadn't heard before I saw the movie, which was that he was kind of, with the name, they don't say the name that much in the movie.
Right. Well,
so I was like, that sounds worse coming out of somebody's mouth than it's probably done in the movie.
Right, because in a way, it kind of makes sense if this is the first time he's appearing,
right,
that they wouldn't have a name for him yet.
Again, but more than that, it's like, I'm sure it works fine in the movie, but just listening to it on its own without the context, I kind of get nervous.
And
I also heard him talk about, and I also feel like he exaggerates a little bit in terms of what they're doing. Like, he said something in an interview where he's like, you don't really see Godzilla till the last, couple frames of the movie, and I'm like, that's not true.
No, he does exaggerate.
I've seen the trailers, that's not true.
But it's interesting that you bring up the name thing, because there's actually a thing that they do in a lot of kaiju movies and TV shows and things that actually drives me up the wall, is like, a monster will appear, it's never appeared before, they don't build up the fact that there's like an urban legend or anything, but this monster just appears out of nowhere, and instantly the people are like, run, it's insert name here. They do it in Ultraman all the time. Now, of course, Ultraman is a half-hour show, they don't have a lot of time to build things up or whatever.
Did he explain it at all?
Not sometimes. Sometimes a monster will...
That's fucked up.
Sometimes a monster will just show up and they'll be like, oh, it's Naranga.
Where the fuck did you get that name from? I don't know, just fucking run.
I mean, sometimes it's like there's like a legend of this creature, or there was one time where there was a creature that these kids had drawn, and some sort of pseudoscience-y bullshit brought it to life. So naturally, it had a name because the kids named it. Like, sometimes they do, but a lot of times it's just like monster pops up. Oh, it's this thing, and you're like, how do you know?
In Godzilla, they're usually pretty good about it. And in Gamera, as most kaiju movies, they're usually pretty good about the name comes from somewhere, but they can be a little bit like everybody adopts the name really quickly with no questions in some cases. Like
do they?
We're talking about Gigan earlier. Gigan kind of has that where everybody's like, it's this thing. No, it's this thing, and then it's like, okay, it's this thing.
Do they ever give a good explanation of where Rodan's name comes from in the movie? I don't remember. I need to rewatch.
Yes. It's been a while since I've watched either cut of Rodan. I believe. Well, the name itself comes from Pteranodon.
Right.
It's from the scientific name for flying pterosaurs. But I don't remember. I think the idea is that it was a particular species of Pteranodon where they got the name. They do explain it. There's a whole scene where they explain the name. I just don't remember the particulars. But I know that it comes from Pteranodon. And I don't, because the thing is, I'm trying to remember the Japanese cut because it's a lot more well explained in that. Because in the American cut, they're just like, these are two creatures called Rodans, and I'm like, that's not true.
Where did you?
They're not called Rodans.
Where did you come up with Rodans?
It's the same thing as calling the Angurosaurus. It's like it's not called Godzilla is not an Angurosaurus. In Gigantus the Fire Monster, it's like there's a better explanation. When was the last time you rewatched, and this is probably going to be like, never, it's been a long time, the Japanese cut of Godzilla Raids Again?
Since I got the DVD, so quite a while ago.
I haven't watched it since Palooza, and
probably.
I don't remember. The only reason I would rewatch it is because I don't remember what the reaction was to how they realized that it's the same Godzilla. It's the same type of creature that had just attacked the year previous.
It was sometime last year because Raids Again is one of those ones that I did not get until I decided, hey, I'm going to buy all of them.
Right. Yeah, I was just trying to remember what the reaction was with both a new monster and an old monster coming up. Because obviously in the American version, like, these are two new creatures, and they're not. I mean, they fucking prove it, where they're like, a similar creature attacked last year in Tokyo, and I'm like, it's the same fucking creature. What are you talking about?
A similar creature.
It's like, no, it's the exact same thing. The only difference is that this one has better fucking effects on it, you idiot.
And it's skinny.
Yeah, I love you, Dr. Yamane, but still.
You were there, Yamane.
Oh, God.
You were on the island when he roared.
You were on the boat when the thing got killed. You named it.
You were there for the whole thing. You wanted to keep it alive, and then now you're just going to pop up, give some exposition that's incorrect, and then go away? What happened, Yamane? What happened?
What happened? Are you like, senile?
Maybe he was.
Anyway.
He was an old fellow.
He was old, and he played a, he lived for quite a while after that, though. He's in Ghidra, so he popped up again. I don't know, when did Takashi Shimura die? I imagine he died in, was it 1968? I don't know. I'd look it up, but I'm too lazy. He did not live for very long after the 60s, though. But anyway, Dylan, let's hop into the list. We've kind of prolonged this as long as we possibly can. So what we're going to do is we'll go my number 5. No, you know what? Fuck it. Since I've given my list before, let's go Dylan. Let's have Dylan go first. So Dylan, you give your number 5, your reasons. We'll talk about it, and then I'll give my number 5 reasons, then talk about it. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, everybody. So this is Dylan and I's top 5 favorite Godzilla films. Cue the eerie Godzilla music. No, we won't do that for editing reasons. But Dylan, go ahead. What's your number 5 favorite Godzilla film?
Now, this pick might be a tad controversial, because there are plenty of people who A, don't like this film at all, and B, wouldn't have it on their list, or if it was, wouldn't be anywhere near this high. Honestly, if we were doing like an objective top 10 list, this would be a lot lower. But because of the whole point of which ones do I rewatch the most often, I love me a good anniversary special. And I love me some fan service.
Oh, I know what it is.
And exactly 10 years ago, we received what is not only one of my favorite anniversary specials ever made, but some of the most ridiculously over-the-top and satisfying fan service anybody can ever receive in their lives. I am, of course, referring to the 50th anniversary movie, Godzilla Final Wars.
Yeah.
Again, not a better film, but I do rewatch it very often.
I toyed with putting this on there, but I don't find myself rewatching enough to put it on.
Oh, I do. I rewatch it a lot. It's so fun.
It is really fun.
When I want a Godzilla movie that I can just turn my brain off and enjoy, this is usually the one that I go to, just because it does it bigger than anyone else.
It is quite good at it.
Oh God, where do I begin? What can I say about? There's
a lot of fighting in it.
There's so much fighting in it, you guys. So many references.
Yeah.
Just so much good stuff. And I know a lot of people don't like Final Wars at all. And a lot of people
think it's like a lot of people will say like things like really horrible things like, oh, it's an abortion of the Godzilla franchise, and I'm like, really? I don't agree with that at all.
A lot of people say I wanted something more serious for the 50th anniversary, and I'm like, well, you kind of had that in the 90s, and you're getting
Destroya functioned very, very well at that,
and you're getting it again now. So shut up.
Yeah, I think I don't know, because Final Wars is kind of. It's a remake of Destroy All Monsters, and I think a lot of the people who don't like Final Wars don't like Destroy All Monsters.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a part of it. But I think I like Final Wars a little more than Destroy All Monsters.
I will say this: if you're a person out there who does not like Final Wars like at all, try this, because this worked for a friend of ours. Go watch Versus and then rewatch Final Wars and see if you see it in a different light. I don't know what it is, but once you watch Versus and you get a better idea of who Ryuhei Kitamura is and what he's about, it makes Final Wars better.
Yeah, it's just you appreciate the like what he's good at and what he tries to do with his movies, and if you appreciate that intent, Final Wars makes a lot more sense in that way, rather than
because
rather than just watching it as a straight up Godzilla movie. Though I think it still functions. Like the only problem I find that it runs into is there's just a lack of focus on Godzilla, even though his name is in the title.
Yes, that is true. That is probably the biggest problem with the movie.
I would agree.
That's why normally if I was going to put it on a top 10 list, it would be right at the bottom, right down there at number 10.
Indeed.
But again, we were only doing 5 for this list. I wanted to give sort of a general impression of the sorts of things that are on my list, and so I wanted to have at least one on there that's just all out fun. And so
and it's a really entertaining movie. I'm doing I think I mentioned this earlier, but we're having a party here at the house to celebrate the release of the new movie, and I think I'm going to put Final Wars on as one of the background pieces, because what we're doing is we're bringing out all the TVs.
Oh yeah.
Putting them all in all downstairs and just playing different Godzilla movies in each one.
I mean, hell, you could mute the movie and just look at the visuals, and it would be an entertaining experience.
It is a gorgeous movie, extremely, extremely well done.
It is really beautiful.
You can tell it was expensive. It is the most. At least I think it's the most expensive Godzilla movie that Toho produced.
There's some early 2000s CG in there, which is always questionable, but it's some of the best CG. I wouldn't say the best CG, but it's some of the better CG of Millennium, because a lot of time Millennium struggles with CG.
I think Ghidorah is probably the best example of it. He looks great. He looks fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Zilla looks pretty good too.
Yeah. Less.
He doesn't look as good as he did in his own movie, but he looks pretty good, and he looks good with Godzilla on screen. But the CGI and Kamacuras looks great in CG too. They do him a lot in CG, and he looks good.
Mm-hmm. They totally wasted an opportunity with Hedorah, because they should have done him CG and really played with his powers. I've said this before. I think Hedorah is a monster that is almost born to be portrayed in CG at some point, because when he's animated, you can play with his liquid nature. And they could have done something really cool with that, and that's a wasted opportunity, because not only is I think he's done with the suit, but he's in the movie for like 5 seconds.
You can't even see his design, because he just gets slammed into a building, and then Ebera crushes him, and he gets killed.
And I'm like, how would that kill him?
Yeah, it's bizarre. He apparently has a cut scene though. Because there's this footage of him in the credits that's clearly him in his own scene, and it's just not used. He looks great, though, I think.
You can tell that Kitamura is very much a fan of what we were talking about before, the great fight scenes in the 70s.
He's clearly a 70s Godzilla fan.
There's so much.
And that's also very clear in the scene where Godzilla fights Anguirus, Rodan, and King Caesar, which is probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Mm-hmm. And the prominent focus on Gigan. Love Gigan in this movie.
Yeah, Gigan is one of the best parts of it. He's amazing.
Gigan in this movie is the perfect example to point to of how you can redesign a kaiju very well.
Yeah, and retain everything that makes that character cool, but also make him modern. And I like that design better than the original. I mean, I love original Gigan, but he just looks amazing in Final Wars. But I was gonna say something else about Final Wars because I didn't put it on my list. So I kind of want to say everything now. What was I gonna say? Oh, fuck, I don't remember. I was gonna say this. Ryuhei Kitamura, sorry guys, I'm tired, is a big fan of Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, the original.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very clear because of how big of a role King Caesar has.
Yeah. Part of me wishes there was some version of Mechagodzilla represented in this movie, but we just had to.
It was supposed to be, but he had 2 movies before it, so Toho was like, let's get some variety.
But I think if that, they could have.
They didn't stop them with Mothra.
They could have done it if they had gone back to like 70s, like Mechagodzilla, and done a version of that. But again, we had just had 2 Mechagodzilla movies, so it's not really an issue.
And 2 fairly well done Mechagodzilla movies, so I feel like they were like Mechagodzilla's gotten everything.
It didn't stop them from putting Mothra in the movie, but whatever.
Well, Mothra has like 2 scenes, and she's horrible in it, so she does nothing. She
kills Gigan
after Godzilla's already killed him. And the only reason Godzilla doesn't do it again is because Monster X is kicking his ass.
Yeah, that's true.
So no, Monster X is badass too. I love that monster.
I love him. I love the fact that he's just a version of Ghidorah. That was a cool reveal.
That was I didn't know about that until I saw the movie.
But his design.
Did you know that he wasn't supposed to be that way though? He was supposed to be. David told me about this, and I had heard about it beforehand. He was supposed to be Godzilla's brother.
Really?
He was almost supposed to be like Bizarro Godzilla, which I'm like, why not just do Space Godzilla? But no.
Yeah, that's a strange idea, considering his design. His design doesn't evoke that to me. I mean, maybe the design was different at the time.
I think he looks. If you look at him again, he does kind of look like Godzilla, though.
But if you look at him, you can definitely tell that after you've already seen the movie once and you already know about it, you can tell that he's Ghidorah also.
Oh no, you can see the seeds of why he turns into Ghidorah, but you can also definitely see the idea that he was supposed to be in some way related to Godzilla.
Because he's got the 3 heads right there. It's just 2 of them are disguised as shoulder pads,
and the 2 tails too.
He's got the split tail, so.
And obviously he flies like Ghidorah does, and that shot where he descends down and Godzilla's just looking up is one of the best shots in that movie.
Yeah, if you're in the mood for Godzilla and you're also in the mood for a kick-ass action movie, this is probably, to me, the most satisfying.
Yeah, also if you just want to see Godzilla be a fucking pimp and just fucking own all of the monsters, it's really satisfying.
Yeah, you remember how Destroy All Monsters was called Destroy All Monsters, but relatively few of them got destroyed.
No, none of them. I mean, the only one that dies in the movie is Ghidorah.
In this movie, most of them get destroyed.
Yeah, Godzilla kills almost all of them, which is weird because none of them are acting of their own will except him. And Gigan, obviously, and Monster X, but...
this movie deserved to be called Destroy All Monsters.
Yeah. I also kind of feel like Godzilla's a bit overpowered in it, but I suppose that's the point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he does get his ass kicked in the end, but and I guess that's part of the point is that you want to see Godzilla be a badass, but it should have happened earlier in the movie. Or
also, I'm a sucker for an entertaining villain, and that kid that takes over the Dillions is amazing. I don't understand why he didn't just send all his monsters after Godzilla at once. Like after the first few battles, you think he would have been like, okay, fuck this, like 1, 2 at a time, shit, send them all.
Well, he did.
Send everything.
He sent down like 4 of them at the same time. Remember when I just mentioned it? Anguirus, Rodan, and King Caesar fight him at the same time.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't know, he should have piled them all in there. Like, after that first fight.
I agree. I mean, and it's weird because...
why do you keep underestimating Godzilla after watching this fight?
Well, you know what? Let's think about this. So he fights Zilla in Sydney.
Although this was after he had already beaten Gigan at the North Pole.
Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting about that. Also, Godzilla's going all over the world, so it's really taking time for him to get from place to place. Why doesn't he just keep Why does he wait for Godzilla to get somewhere?
You know, Ghidorah and Gigan are like the two like secret weapons of the Exilians, which is a nice little, which is nice because they were partners in Godzilla versus Gigan. There's like the two secret weapons that the Exilians have under their sleeve. You'd think after he got beat at the North Pole, they'd be taking this monster a little more seriously and not sending fucking Zilla to fight him. But maybe I'm overanalyzing Final Wars at this point. Can
I say an unusual observation that I noticed the first time I watched the movie when I was a child?
What?
The main character never says Godzilla's name. Never addresses him at all.
No.
Isn't that kind of weird?
No, that kind of more becomes the Gordon.
It kind of embodies the problem, doesn't it?
Well, you've almost kind of got two main characters, because at some point in the middle, Gordon steps up and becomes like the other guy that you follow, and he's the one who does most of the expositing about how awesome Godzilla is.
And how powerful he is, yeah. And he's the one who's got the connection to Godzilla with him being the one who locked him up in the ice.
I think the idea is that the actual main character is supposed to be a very just like focused, sort of quiet warrior, because he doesn't do a whole lot of talking overall.
No, which is kind of weird, because he's the one who is trying to change the way mutants are seen, where they're not just killing machines.
Yeah.
So I almost feel like he would try talking it out more than, say, Kazama does, but I don't know. It was just a weird thing where I'm like, this is a Godzilla movie in which the main character never uses the name Godzilla, and it's not even like he never addresses him at all. Like, there's not even a thing where he even like says anything about Godzilla at all. Even like not even calling. It's weird. It's almost like watching fucking like Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Indy never addresses the Lost Ark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That would be strange.
It would be really strange, and it is strange. But anyway, I was trying to use that as a segue. So what you notice in Final Wars is that there's a lot of references to Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the fight with King Caesar. You've got King Caesar having a big role. You've got him being in the three-way fight with Godzilla's two most classic allies, which I thought was kind of interesting. Have all of Godzilla's allies fight him at once, except for Mothra.
Right.
And then probably the most heralded reference, like subtle reference in the whole movie, is the Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla theme playing on the radio with those two guys who were at the base in the South Pole.
Yeah, yeah.
That's my favorite reference. And what I'm going to use to segue is that my number 5 favorite Godzilla, my 5th favorite Godzilla movie, sorry for my improper grammar, is Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla from 1975, for almost the exact same reasons as you said Final Wars. Mother of God, is this movie entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
I watched it fairly recently, and it's a really fun movie, extremely fast-paced. It's everything I love about 70s Godzilla. And for the same reasons for the reasons we established these lists was to kind of embody everything we love about this character and the legacy of the franchise. I had to get in one from the 70s that I love just because of how fun it is and because of how badass it is. And Dark Godzilla is great, and everybody loves the metaphor of Godzilla for the atomic bomb, and obviously the character is very socially and historically relevant in that way. But I feel like in a way everybody is also forgetting that this character has this other legacy of being this big icon of fun and high-octane adventure.
Everything we've said, not only about Final Wars, but earlier when we were talking about Godzilla vs. Gigan, most of that applies to this movie as well.
And it's almost done better.
Okay, this is one of the best examples of 70s Godzilla. It is so much, it's not only fun, but the crap, what am I trying to say?
The way because the thing is, like, it's not aiming for anything more to be entertaining, but it does what it sets out to do so extremely well that you can't help but appreciate how well done it is.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you looking for in a fun 70s Godzilla movie?
I want
fast-paced action.
Yes.
Lots of monsters.
Colorful, over-the-top action also.
Colorful, over-the-top action. No, like Godzilla being a badass, and a really fun story involving alien invasion and espionage and just all this different stuff. and also a really cool plot device that structures the entire story with the prophecy.
Also,
that prophecy is so extremely important to why that movie flows as well as it does.
Also, I like to have an entertaining human cast underscoring the whole thing.
Too, very entertaining human cast. They're not deep in any sense, but they're incredibly fun to follow.
But you don't need, that's what I was about to say. They're not deep, but you don't need that in this kind of Godzilla movie.
No, you should just enjoy watching them do what they do, and also enjoy watching how they interact with the monsters and how they interact with the story. I mean, aside from the heroes, the villains are amazing.
Mm.
I love the head of the head of the simians. I'm going to call them. They're not called that in the movie, but that's their official designation in the Godzilla fan community. In the movie, they are called the spacemen from the third planet from the black hole.
That's why we now have the name simians.
Right. So I'm going to continue to call them simians, but they're not called that in the movie. So just going to say that right now for any Godzilla fans or anybody listening who's not Godzilla fans, since I know we have those too, who are just like, what the fuck is a simian?
Yes, generally they are referred to as simians, although I also really enjoy the phrase space apes.
Right, that too. Apes from space. They were. Did you read? And I wouldn't blame you if you didn't, because it was horrible. But it had a really cool moment in Godzilla Past, Present, Future.
Past, Present, Future. I don't think so.
That was the second Dark Horse book they put out.
No, I haven't read a lot of Dark Horse.
It's horrible, except for the first two issues. The first two issues are great because it's the simians fighting Godzilla, and it's really cool. And they use Mogul and everything. It's really great. But he is incredibly entertaining. You just want to see him do shit, and he's really just a bastard and kind of like a scumball, and just really fun to watch. And that's what you want. Just everything is fun to watch in this movie. There's nothing I don't like. The agent is awesome. He's really snarky and sarcastic and just fun to watch. I love Akihiko Hirata's character, the scientist. He's really what's his name? Fujiwara? I don't know. He's got some awesome name. Some awesome Japanese name. I love the main character's brother. It's just all great. All great. The music score. Oh, God, is it fucking upbeat and fun. This is just stuff like Godzilla fans want to fucking party to, bro. Mm-hmm. Just like fucking like dun dun da 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 na 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 na. It's just so fucking fun. And it just gets you pumped up. I put this movie on when I want to be in a good mood.
Also, all of this to say nothing about the actual monsters involved. Mechagodzilla is still my favorite, and probably.
Oh God, we haven't even gotten to that yet. The monsters are awesome.
The '70s Mechagodzilla is still my favorite and most badass version of Mechagodzilla, in my opinion. I don't
really have a favorite. I mean, I guess just because of the version of, I guess I like the 90s one the best, but I love all of them, and I really love the 70s version as well, and he's badass. He's built up to be incredibly powerful and succeeds in that.
Mm-hmm. You get an awesome new kaiju in the form of King Caesar, who has become an underused fan favorite. I mean, my first episode of Kaiju Spotlight was all about King Caesar. Go watch that.
Yeah, he's one of the few they haven't put in the IDW books yet that I'm sure they'll do at some point, just because of how popular he is.
I mean, he's like, and I said this in that first episode of Kaiju Spotlight, available now on YouTube at SuperDM64. He's like Kaiju Bruce Lee. He really is.
He is. He's badass. I almost feel like, though, in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, he's the one of the prophecy that's almost like he's kind of built up too much and he doesn't succeed in. Like, you know, there's no way he's going to win that fight without Godzilla.
No, it's the prophecy makes it sound very much like King Caesar is going to save the world, but really all...
And they're terrified of King Caesar. I mean, the whole fucking... The spacemen are like, that's the thing that's going to take us down, is King Caesar. But it's not. Godzilla is the one who kills Mechagodzilla.
Really, and King Caesar is a big help. I think the prophecy is misinterpreted.
Absolutely.
Clearly, I don't think Godzilla could have won the fight if it hadn't been for King Caesar's help, and obviously King Caesar...
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, he was able to take down two monsters in the sequel by himself.
Well, for the purposes of the story of the movie, we have to assume that both of them were necessary for the prophecy.
Indeed.
Also, we get another appearance by Anguirus. His death in this movie is surprisingly tragic.
He doesn't die.
He doesn't? I thought he died.
No, he crawls off into a hole.
Oh, but didn't he get his jaw broke?
Yeah, but he didn't die.
Oh, I've seen it. It's been a while. Anyway, him getting his jaw broken in this movie is surprisingly heartbreaking when you take into account like Gigan and like because him and Godzilla had become sort of like teammates.
They're friends. I mean that's part of the plot is that Anguirus calls Godzilla to fight this motherfucker because he knows it's not actually Godzilla.
They are brothers in arms. Where the fuck he was during Megalon, I do not know. But
they show him on Monster Island. They show Rodan too.
Yeah, but do they do anything?
Don't they kind of imply a Megalon that they're dead?
Kind of, but obviously that isn't.
No, obviously that's not true. But it's kind of implied that they're dead.
Sometimes I think Megalon might just be in its own alternate sort of continuity.
Who the fuck knows what's going on with Megalon?
I mean, love me some Jet Jaguar, but anyway.
Have you read Rulers of Earth Volume 2 yet?
No, I'm going to next week.
You're gonna love it. It's fantastic, especially what they do with said Jet Jaguar.
I'm gonna get that next week, and
They make him like the most badass character in the whole book. It's weird. And I totally bought it. You know me, I'm a big Jet Jaguar poo-pooer. But
no longer.
They make him bad.
But no longer. Rulers of Earth is to you and Jet Jaguar what Versus was to Adam in Final Wars.
Very much so. I have made my peace with Jet Jaguar because of Rulers of Earth.
They are on good terms now. He realizes that Jet Jaguar was the diamond in the rough that was Godzilla versus Megalon.
He's fucking ridiculous, but they make him cool. Anyway,
he's an Ultraman ripoff, and Ultraman's fucking ridiculous. So
Godzilla's first appearance in this fucking movie. Holy shit!
Oh yeah, it's one of the
fake Godzilla is blasting through a fucking industrial area, blowing shit up. There's fire everywhere. There's this great shot where they cut to the human characters in a car, and the entire windshield is just like framed by fire, which is just the reflection of all the fire on their windshield.
Yeah.
And it's fucking awesome.
The 70s have some of the best Godzilla hero entrances.
Teruyushi Nakano, man, holy shit, can he blow shit up?
Oh, the explosions, you guys.
Oh, explosions.
The explosions.
The explosions are great, especially in the next one, Terror of Mechagodzilla.
Indeed.
What was I gonna say? Oh, but the idea is Godzilla just fucking shows up, blasts through a building, and just starts owning that fake motherfucker, that fucking poser. And then that poser promptly almost kills him, but
that poser,
it's still awesome.
That poser is not to be taken lightly.
Indeed, not at all. But he does fuck him up at least for a couple minutes. Their fight's awesome, and seeing two Godzillas beat the shit out of each other is cool. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Just Godzilla's awesome, and both his first and second appearance. Oh, no, I guess his third technically, since he pops up earlier on that island and gets struck by lightning and somehow gets magnet powers. Which is still fucking. It's a cool visual. Despite not making any sense. It's his third appearance is also awesome, where King Caesar is getting his ass kicked and. The water just explodes in light, and Godzilla just pops up and just like scream and just fucks shit up.
Wouldn't it have been more merciful if Anguirus had died in that scene? He's gonna crawl off and like die of starvation and pain. Anyway.
Yeah, but he healed. He's an atomic life form.
Whatever.
We also know he doesn't die because he's in Destroy All Monsters.
Ah, indeed.
Which is a future thing. So we know he's alive.
I always forget everything in the 70s is a prequel.
Well, here's the only problem with Destroy All Monsters continuity wise is where the fuck is Minya in the 70s?
Yeah.
I guess the idea is like, I don't know, maybe he went off somewhere because he got older, but no, he clearly didn't get older because he's a kid back in the future.
Well, he's running around.
So maybe that's not. Maybe Minya turned into Godzilla in the future.
Well, he's busy running around with Ichiro. No,
Right, absolutely.
Are you talking about in Destroy All Monsters? Minya can't be Godzilla in Destroy All Monsters because Minya is in Destroy All Monsters.
But I'm saying maybe that's his kid then. It's a different Minya.
So you're saying it's like Minya Jr.?
Yeah.
This is getting too weird, man.
possible, though, right?
Son of Minya.
We know the Mothra in Destroy All Monsters is a different Mothra than the one we had seen.
But it's never even really explained whether Minya is his kid or adopted. And the other...
No, he's adopted, but...
And the other problem is, that would mean that there's a female Godzilla running around somewhere.
Maybe she's dead.
So Minya grew up, met a female Godzilla, they dated for a while, he knocked her up, they had a kid, they were very happy, and then she died, and he's very sad.
Yeah! Maybe that's why Godzilla calmed down a little bit, because he got some pussy.
This is the untold chapter in the Godzilla saga. Oh.
We should write this fan fiction. Fuck Godzilla Odyssey. This is the fan fiction we should write.
The life and times of Minya.
His dad dies in a tragic drug overdose. He overdosed on too much fucking atomic radiation.
Indeed.
Minya swore vengeance, went on a rampage, met another female Godzilla. They fucked. They had a kid. She got killed in a tragic boating accident of some kind. Maybe she got hit by a fucking aircraft carrier.
Yes.
And Minya...
Because that would be enough to kill a Godzilla.
Well, a female Godzilla, because we all know that females are weak.
Oh,
no.
that's true. That's true. I'm imagining that the female Godzilla would look something like Zilla.
No, probably more like... Because didn't they explain... I think I said this to you once. There was a Godzilla book that came out in the 80s that canonicized the Raids Again Godzilla to be a female.
That's interesting.
Which is why she is skinnier. And I'm cool with that, as long as that means that, Godzilla later on was a dude.
That would explain where Minya came from.
Indeed.
If they had already fucked and that that egg was just lying in wait on that island for all those years.
Indeed.
Because
that's never even attempted to be explained where that egg comes from. I just always assumed that it wasn't actually... I always assumed that it was...
That would mean that Minya isn't adopted. Truly, he is the son of Godzilla.
Indeed. Well, I always thought the idea was that egg had been laid in prehistoric times.
Mm-hmm. And then...
And I guess I'm kind of basing it on the Heisei version, where that is what happened. Where that egg is millions of years old and it just got woken up by the radiation. As
long as the egg itself was mutated while the child was developing, because then that...
Right, well that's the idea in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2.
Which, what would be interesting to play around with is, would a Godzillasaurus that was mutated during the earliest stages of development turn into the same creature as one that had already fully developed and then mutated later?
Well, we'll never really know now, because what happened in the Heisei continuity was he was mutated at least partially during development, and then grew up to look somewhat like his dad, and then got hit again by radiation, turning him into almost an exact duplicate of his dad.
In other words, Heisei is confusing.
Indeed. But fascinating to discuss. But we'll get to Heisei later. But that's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Awesome movie.
Indeed. So are we moving on now? Number 4?
You're number 4, sir.
Okay. I think it's safe to say that since Godzilla is the first kaiju franchise, that it fell upon it as a series to develop many of the tropes that are now associated with the series.
Indeed.
Most famously, of course, being the idea of two kaiju fighting each other.
Indeed.
This is an idea, of course, that was introduced in Raids Again, greatly improved upon in King Kong vs. Godzilla, but I think perfected in my number 4, the fourth film, Mothra vs. Godzilla. Not only number 4 on my list, but number 4 in the canon. That's interesting. I just realized. Indeed. What can I say?
Again, one heralded by both fans and critics in general. Most critics will say that this is one of the best Godzilla movies that non-Godzilla fans can enjoy.
It's the first one since '54 that is good in just about every aspect. I mean, you have a fantastic score, you have a great human cast, you have a good story, you have a great monster fight. I think it was a real challenge for Toho to try and think of a monster to pit against Godzilla that would be impressive after they had already done King Kong, like the biggest crossover they could possibly do at that time. And so for them to take Mothra, which was at that time definitely, I would say, their second most popular kaiju, because
that was their other big moneymaker.
Because
aside from, and in a way, Godzilla wasn't until King Kong versus Godzilla.
Right. Mothra was Mothra, I think, took off from the first movie. Everybody loved Mothra, and it's a fantastic movie, as those of us who have seen it will contend.
I can't say anything.
But yeah, Mothra vs. Godzilla, all around great movie. I love it.
I can't say anything about it yet.
Oh, it's on your list again later.
Maybe.
Well, then we'll save most of the discussion for then. The one thing I do want to mention, though, like Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, fantastic entrance in this movie. When he comes out of the ground,
amazing.
It's one of my all-time favorite entrances from him.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Just so I don't forget later, I'll say this now. Also, one of the best wide shots in the entire franchise, where you've got the factory workers in the foreground, and you've got this big, huge long shot of Godzilla in the way distance, walking, like, destroying this foundry, and they're in the foreground.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks really fantastic. There's some really amazing double exposure and double projection in the film. I suppose that would be rear projection. Yeah, it would be rear projection, not double projection. I'm sorry.
And one more thing I want to mention before we move on, because we can save most of the discussion for when this comes up in your list. I love the fact that when the idea of them going back to Infant Island and it now being a radioactive wasteland, because
oh god, that was fantastic.
Because in the original in Mothra, in that movie, it's not that way.
Right, some really good use of continuity in that way.
It's a very nice, prosperous island in that movie, and
right.
Turning it into a nuclear wasteland is the perfect way to connect it to Godzilla and make it a part of that feel and that allegory that they always go for in a Godzilla film, or in a good Godzilla film.
I absolutely agree. I thought that was a really amazing choice.
Even though they kind of ignore that in the future.
Yeah, well, the other interesting thing about Mothra vs. Godzilla that I'll say now is that everybody knows who Mothra is, and there's no question of whether or not it's the same creature. They just know right away. Oh, it's Mothra who attacked Tokyo in 1960? 61?
I think 60. Don't quote me on that.
I think it was 60. But yeah, I agree. I'll get to this later, but we can talk more about it then. But yeah, it's on my list, and we'll get to it. My number 4, sir, which may or may not be on your list, so let me know, is a really, really super nostalgic one for me. This one might be controversial, too, because I know a lot of people don't love it like I do, but I couldn't help but put it here just because of how much it holds up over time. My number 4 is Godzilla 2000. I just find this movie incredibly impressive.
Not on my list, but one of my favorites as well.
Yeah, so let's talk about it now then. Mother of God, is this movie well done.
Mm-hmm.
Almost everything works for what they're trying to do, because what's really interesting about 2000 is it was Toho's take on what an American reboot of Godzilla should have been. Because it's also really impressive because it's almost everything you need to know about Godzilla in an hour-and-a-half movie.
Because in a lot of ways it does feel like an American-made movie, even though it's Japanese.
And it was released in America, so that helps too. And it was partially funded by TriStar, who put out the '98 movie.
In that way, do you think it's kind of fitting that 2000 is probably the only example of an American dub that the fans like better than the Japanese version?
That makes sense. I mean, it's a Japanese movie made with American sensibilities.
Which I guess made the American dubbers' jobs easier, I guess.
I suppose. The other thing is that it's more well edited in the American cut.
Mm-hmm.
But what's to say about 2000? It's very unique in the franchise in many respects. One of them being Godzilla appears before the credits roll, which is rare, almost never. Usually they build up the character a lot before they show him on screen. But the idea is that this is a universe where dealing with Godzilla is a really regular thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which hadn't really been done except in sequels to previous continuities. Like the Heisei series kind of did that, but they never really ran with it in the very creative angle that 2000 did, with the whole idea of the Godzilla Prediction Network and kind of treating Godzilla like a storm or a force of nature, where they predict where he's going to land and what's going to happen, and they can therefore sell that data to help the military. And the government in general deal with the problem, which is really, really smart and a really interesting idea, and they for the most part do it very well. It could definitely be expanded upon, but they do it in a very satisfactory way.
They use that same idea in a sort of different way in one of the issues of Half Century War as well.
They do,
in the one, because at one point during the story, the Megalosaurus force ceases to be a Godzilla fighting force and becomes very much a prediction network.
Right, in the 80s when they couldn't... Well, because they had that giant failure in the 70s, and they were kind of put on basically watching duty in the 80s, and their thing was, do you just sit back, watch the fireworks? That's all you got to do.
You mentioned that there are different people working on fighting Godzilla at this point, and is that supposed to be G-Fest or G-Force? Did they ever...
No, it's still the anti-Megalosaurus force, just a
new generation of it, I guess.
It's not men on the ground fighting Godzilla like it was in the early days. It's literally just a bunch of guys in giant mechs fighting Godzilla.
No, what I'm saying is they still... Okay, I get you.
I'm just saying that it's not... They don't... Because the idea was they were putting men on the ground.
Yeah.
To fight Godzilla in the early days, and they weren't doing that in the 80s. And also the idea was that nobody was fighting Godzilla, really. It was just like let everybody know where he's going and get out of the way, because there's nothing you can do. So, and that was a really interesting idea.
Yeah.
But 2000 is just filled with interesting ideas like that. I mean, aside from the Prediction Network, another fascinating idea that again was done in the Heisei series, but it's done differently in a different. They take a different angle with it. Is the idea of G cells and what can be done with Godzilla cells.
Oh yeah.
And they explore something that had never really been addressed in the franchise before with Godzilla's healing factor. Because of course, you've always played with the idea of he's indestructible, but the idea is in 2000 that yes, he's indestructible, but he's also, if he is hurt, he's also able to heal at an incredible rate. And my favorite idea that comes out of this is A, you can get a whole other monster out of that, but B, that means that Godzilla has a lot more value alive than dead.
Yeah.
Because you get to study that effect, and you get to study... And Shinoda is extremely sympathetic because he's not crazy. He understands that Godzilla is incredibly dangerous and something's got to be done.
I mean, if they had known all that in the 50s, Dr. Yamane probably would have been listened to a lot more.
In the 50s, they didn't... I mean, back in the 50s, they didn't even fully understand paleontology.
Yeah.
And think about it, and this is a weird way to say it, but this is post-Jurassic Park.
Right.
So there was at least somewhat of a more of a conscious of the scientific value and intricacies of paleontology and dinosaurs and what they mean for modern science. And our modern and evolution. I mean, we learned a lot about evolution because of what we learned from dinosaurs.
Because in classic Godzilla, that idea is never really there so much. The whole idea of regeneration. It was just he's a tough bastard.
The healing factor was never really present. It's just kind of like nothing can even get past him. And more than that, even when stuff did hurt him, they don't show the healing factor. Like in the 70s when Godzilla started bleeding, the blood stayed there.
Yeah. You just assume that
in 2000, and in ensuing films, the regeneration factor is much more present. But
I think it's a great addition to Godzilla's skill set.
It is, and it makes perfect sense. Like, it's not like it comes out of nowhere. It makes perfect sense. It also makes sense with radiation, because radiation, and the effect of radiation on cancer cells is that cancer cells spread.
Yeah. So
it's infectious. And Godzilla, if you listen to that really both funny but also very informative video, Godzilla: A Natural History, it's they say that Godzilla is basically a giant cancer cell that just regenerates these horrible cells and keeps them alive and keeps them regenerating and everything. But lovable human cast, amazing action sequences. The effects don't entirely hold up because there's a lot of CGI.
A lot of bad CGI.
A lot of really bad CGI.
Also, that terrible blue or green screen shot where he's walking. Yeah,
that was horrible. There's also some weird size inconsistencies where Godzilla looks a lot bigger than he actually is. Because this Godzilla can only be like, what, not much more than the original size. But there's this shot where he's like fucking towering over, like you can see him way in the distance, and it's a little bit too much. But otherwise, a stellar Godzilla film, incredibly tight, Very, very entertaining. I love the human cast. There's just some really fascinating uses of a universe where dealing with Godzilla is a normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite lines in Godzilla history where they're talking about the UFO, and they're going, this is impossible. And then the guy goes, yeah, like Godzilla's normal. I thought that was one of the best lines in the franchise. And also, what makes 2000 very impressive to me, as somebody who's such a big Godzilla fan, is that it encapsulates almost every single era of Godzilla in one movie.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the Dark Godzilla with, the nuclear metaphor. The nuclear metaphor is there. It's just not exactly outright, but they talk about... Well, I mean, and what they bring up more overtly is Godzilla being a consequence of man playing with science.
Right.
You've got the superhero Godzilla with that ending 15 minutes that I love so much of if Godzilla keeps protecting us, why does he also keep destroying us? And Shinoda has that line about because there's a little bit of Godzilla inside of us, and you take that as you will. But I really like that line. I know a lot of people make fun of it, but I really enjoy that line.
There's a little bit of Godzilla in all of us.
I think the idea is more so that Godzilla lives here too.
Right.
And
I think the reason that line is so made fun of is just the way it's worded specifically.
It's a strange line.
It comes off a bit corny or cheesy.
It does. I absolutely accept that. But I also love the ending couple minutes where Godzilla is silently moving. And I know this isn't how it's done in the Japanese version, but in the American version, there's that sound. There's no sound effects playing. This is Shinoda's narration and Godzilla destroying Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's that great ending shot of Godzilla blowing up all the buildings around him with his atomic breath, and he's surrounded by fire. And the theme song from Ghidorah starts playing of the and then Godzilla's just fucking engorged in fire. And then the last shot is this Godzilla looking at the camera, just gorged in fire. And then the theme starts playing.
I think another thing that should be said about Godzilla 2000, the same thing I said about Gigan and Final Wars, and this was even more relevant because 98 had just come out before this. This is a good example of how to redesign a kaiju.
Oh God, yeah.
And keep the original feel. The 2000 redesign. Well, I'm not wild about the color choices.
I'm not crazy about the purple spines and the red blast.
Right. I don't mind the green skin on Godzilla, actually.
Well, you can barely tell.
Yeah. But this is a good example of redesigning a kaiju and doing it well. Also, I think we would be remiss not to mention Orga and how much of a badass.
Oh God, I'm sorry, I didn't even think of that. But Orga's a badass, and he's not named in the movie.
No.
But he was obviously named by fans later, and that name has become canon because it's in the IDW books. Orga's awesome. I know a lot of people see him as kind of a deus ex machina of like, we need Godzilla to fight something aside from this UFO, so let's just have a quick explanation to have a monster. I thought it makes perfect sense with what the movie was building up to, and it really couldn't end in any other way.
Yeah.
And I also feel like it's a great device to get a quick monster fight, and a really good monster fight. And also, Orga is just a badass-looking monster and really creepy.
I love the scene where he tries to eat Godzilla.
Yeah.
A, because it's sort of a reference to Biollante.
Yeah.
B, because you get the idea being that he's trying to like absorb Godzilla's G cells or whatever.
Well, he's trying to become Godzilla.
He's trying to become Godzilla and become a better organism, and like he starts, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't he start to like grow spines?
Yeah, he starts to look more.
And
before he dies, he looks very similar to Godzilla.
Of course, he probably would have had a better judgment to kill Godzilla before he eats him, because we all saw how it worked.
No, if he kills him, he can't use it. He can't take his power.
I mean, he should have found some way to do so without sticking a atomic ray gun down his throat.
It was kind of okay. That's the scene. Okay, that was stupid. I don't know what the fuck he was thinking. Well, what he should have done is bitten him on the shoulder and just kept biting, because Godzilla clearly does it intentionally.
Right.
He runs right into Orga's mouth.
He's like, this motherfucker thinks he's got me. I'll teach him something.
There's this scene in, and this is if you haven't read Real Wars of Earth Volume 2 yet, which I know you haven't, but I'm going to spoil this for you because it's relevant to the discussion. If you haven't read it yet, spoiler alert, so just skip ahead a couple seconds. they make a joke about that scene in Rulers of Earth Volume 2, where Jaguar comes in, and as a human size, flies into Orga's mouth, and Orga thinks he ate him. And then he starts choking, because Jaguar grows inside of Orga.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he bursts at him, just like, roar, and Godzilla's like, what the fuck? You just see the look on... One thing that I love about Matt Frank is how emotive he makes Godzilla look.
Yeah, he's very good at that.
And his what the fuck Godzilla face is awesome.
I'm a big fan of the Frank Goji. No?
Yeah, he draws an amazing Godzilla. But anyway, that's my take on Godzilla 2000. But again, also really important nostalgically because it's still the only real Godzilla movie I've ever seen in theaters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At
least until next week.
Me too. And I had to go back because the first time I tried to see it in theaters, there was like a tornado and we had to leave the theater.
Is that right?
That is true.
Oh yeah, you live in tornado country, don't you?
Yeah. Yep, I'm in the alley.
When was the last time you had a big one?
Actually, there were some twisters in Tennessee. It wasn't in my part of Tennessee. It was down south on the Georgia border a few weeks ago.
Bad?
Pretty bad, yeah. April and May is the season for it. After April and May, you don't really have to worry that much. Occasionally, you'll get a summer one, but it's very rare.
Have you ever seen a bad one in person?
I've never actually seen one with my own two eyes.
Really?
I've been fortunate.
That's bizarre because I've seen a tornado with my own eyes.
Really?
Yeah, we had one in New York once that I saw with my own eyes. It was fucking horrifying. We had one actually in Nassau County, which is that's like it's snowing in Hawaii. It's just impossible. But it happened. It didn't last very long because obviously the reason why you have Tornado Alley in that area is because it's open land.
Right.
So it didn't last very long.
And it's more common in flat areas. The flat areas. See, I don't get as many as a lot of parts of Tennessee because I live in a very hilly area, if hilly is a word. But the flatter parts get them more frequently. That's why Kansas has such a problem because it's completely flat.
Right, exactly. It's just totally just farmland. But yeah, it's we also had one. We get them upstate quite a bit too for that very reason. It's flat. In the valleys anyway, because obviously in the mountains that's not going to happen. But there's a lot of valleys and a lot of plains in upstate New York, which is why I fucking love it so much. It's a beautiful country. Makes me want to leave right now and go upstate. But it's weird because that's where I saw it. It was upstate, and you saw it in the distance, and it was just terrifying. Because you just see this funnel just tearing shit up. It didn't last very long.
They also have a very unsettling sound. I have heard them. It almost sounds.
Yeah, they do.
They
are very creepy.
It almost sounds like a train, but much worse.
Yeah, it's pretty terrifying. Also, very easy to tell that it was a tornado that did damage that happened upstate 7 years ago. We had this tornado that hit when we weren't at the house, and you can see the damage coming down the freeway for fucking 15 miles. It was horrible. You just saw this line, that shot in the new Godzilla trailer where, and in the original where you've got that line of destroyed brush that leads to the ocean.
Yeah.
I'm presuming that's caused by Godzilla anyway. It looked like that, where you just saw this line of just destroyed trees, and it hit my property. It didn't touch the house, thank God, but it touched some of the trees. So yeah, it's fucked up. But anyway, back to Godzilla. You're number 3, sir.
Yes, number 3. Moving on. Okay. If this was an objective list, this might be higher. I'm not 100% sure, but for my number 3 on this list, I put Godzilla vs. Destroyer. Fantastic movie.
Yeah, indeed. It's actually not on my list just because I don't know why. I just didn't think to put it on, but it is an amazing movie. It's definitely in my top 10.
One of the best of the Heisei series. I mean, do I even have to say that? I love the connection to the original movie. That is really what makes Destroyer so good to me, is the connection to the original movie, to the point where you have characters making reappearances. But the fact that Destroyer is born out of the Oxygen Destroyer, it's also thematically relevant and well done, and it ties itself so closely to the original in such a great way, while also being a very entertaining movie. That it just makes the whole thing more enjoyable than it would be otherwise. My only complaint with this is, why does the army kill Destroya?
What do you mean?
The arm.
Oh, in the end, I don't. It's weird.
Why does the army get to be the ones to defeat Destroya? It should have been. I think when Godzilla melted down, that should have been.
Should have taken Destroya with
That
him.
should have been what took out Destroya as well. Godzilla.
I also don't like the idea that Godzilla is able to. It looks seemingly like he's gonna kill Destroya, even if he wasn't so fucking powerful, he still would have killed Destroya, which I kind of have a problem with.
Yeah, Destroya should be more of an apocalyptic monster than that last fight makes him out to be. You have a monster that is so powerful, is born out of the thing that killed the original Godzilla. He kills Godzilla's son. He beats the crap out of Godzilla. This should be but then the army takes him out, and I don't get it. I don't understand.
Well, there's an alternate ending they shot where Destroya does die in the meltdown. I don't know why the fuck they cut it. Well, actually, I do know. I'm sorry. The reason why they cut it is because they didn't want Destroya's death to distract from Godzilla's death.
Well, here's what.
Which I kind of get, but here's how you fix that.
At the same time,
you have Godzilla blow him up with like one last burst of energy. Well, what they should have done is they should have had the fight with Destroya be the thing that causes the meltdown.
Well,
which I guess it is, but like
what should have happened?
Godzilla starting to melt down while it's happening, and then have the full meltdown sequence right after he kills him.
Here's what you do. This is how you do that without it distracting. When Godzilla starts to have the meltdown, you have one huge, like, radioactive pulse at the beginning. That wipes out Destroya, and then the rest of the scene is focused on him melting down, and you have that sad music and him melting and all that crap that makes everybody cry.
And it's easily the best scene in the fucking movie.
Oh yeah.
Fantastic scene. What was I gonna say? Did you cry as a kid? I cried as a kid.
Did I cry as a kid? I held it back.
Fucking asshole. No, I cried my eyes out. It was a big event when it came on here in the States. I don't know if you remember, but
oh yeah.
When it aired on TV, it was a big deal.
When I first saw it as a child, I didn't really understand. I was like, why is Godzilla covered in lava?
Did you have... Okay, I didn't like that movie as much as I do now as a kid, and the reason was because it seemed cheap to me that Godzilla died not looking like Godzilla.
I didn't really have that problem.
It was a weird issue. I don't know what the fuck was going on in my brain.
The first time I saw the Burning Godzilla design, I thought he was covered in lava. But once I figured out what it was, I thought it was kind of cool, because it was almost like...
Yeah, I didn't have it for very long, but... It was hard for me to grasp. This is the Godzilla I know and love, because he just looked different. So
because for me, it turned into kind of like Godzilla had gone Super Saiyan.
Well, I don't know if that's comparable. It's more of like...
Well, as a child, that's how I interpreted it, because it was like... I don't know.
It's more of like All-Star Superman, where he gets he just bathed in yellow sunlight, and it makes him incredibly powerful, but it's also killing him.
He's gone critical mass.
Right, exactly. So it's kind of like Hulk in that way too.
I love that turn of phrase, critical mass.
Yeah, that's an awesome phrase. But yeah, I would have put this on my list. There are some that I'd rather watch than Destroya.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't know why. There's really no there's nothing. It's nothing to say against Destroya. It's just there are others that I have stronger feelings towards.
Right.
Destroya.
This is one of those ones. One of the exceptions to my rule where I said which ones do I watch the most often, because while I do rewatch this one pretty often, not as much as some of the others on my list, it just made it up to here because of how good it is, and the ending especially.
Also longer than a lot of Heisei Godzilla.
And I think I should probably mention again how awesome Destroya itself is. Honestly, I love the tiny Destroyas more than the big one, because I love those scenes of the humans fighting them, and the one that like attacks the girl in the car, very alien-like.
Very, very horror movie-esque. It's also it's a bizarre scene in the I was never I know you like that. I was never crazy about that scene as a kid. Even now, I don't know. It's great individually of a Godzilla movie, but it's kind of, I think it's too long for its own good.
Yeah,
and the special effects are incredible, but this is Godzilla's last hurrah. I'd like to see Godzilla a little more, and I think what makes it kind of a bigger problem is that Godzilla's in the next scene, but it's really short.
Yeah, they probably could have made that sequence a little bit shorter. I will agree with that. But I don't know.
It is a fantastic movie. I mean, I did a whole review on it, and my review goes in incredible depth, and it's one of my favorite reviews I did for Palooza, in how incredibly creative and ingenious it is as a finale for that franchise, particularly that version of Godzilla.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just perfect. And for those of you who don't like Final Wars and want to see the perfect way to end the Godzilla series, bam, there you go. It's fucking perfect. Everything is utilized. So watch that if you want to see kind of the penultimate chapter in the saga of Godzilla.
I know. We spent a good 20-30 minutes explaining that this was a favorites list and not so much an objective list, but I did want to be somewhat objective.
Right. I mean, absolutely. I mean, good is good and bad is bad, but and that certainly influences your choices. But
so I felt I would be remiss not to have this on here.
And it's not a watch. It's not like this isn't our most watchable. That just kind of tends to be the best way to judge it. But, you know, I understand, Dylan. I understand. You don't have to explain it to me. And fuck them. They don't have to be rationalized too. But yeah, I love Destroya a lot. It's in my. I don't know if you did this, but I wrote down some honorable mentions. I'm gonna state before I get my number one.
Oh no, I didn't do that.
You can throw some out when we get there. I have a couple, and it's definitely on there. But anyway, yeah, I love me some Destroya. Anything else you want to say?
No, I don't think so. I think
Godzilla Jr.'s suit is awesome.
Oh yeah, I do really like the Godzilla Jr. suit in this movie. I was not a fan of the way he looked in the previous film.
No, he looked horrible in Space Godzilla.
He looked way too Minya. You could have done something in that movie that was like still cute, like the one from Mechagodzilla.
It still looked fitting for that franchise.
Right. You needed a good middle ground between what we got in Mechagodzilla and what we got in Destroya, and I don't feel like we had that with the design in.
Well, the whole movie has that problem.
Yeah.
You've got two very well done, very, very fitting in that continuity Godzilla movies, and then just fucking Space Godzilla gets thrown in there, just like, what the fuck? I know a lot of people like Space Godzilla, but I just don't see it. Anyway, so you ready to move on to my number 3?
Yes.
Right. My number 3 is the first in what could have been a long line of Heisei movies, but I decided to break it up. My third favorite Godzilla movie is The Return of Godzilla. Mother of God, do I love Return of Godzilla.
Yeah, very, very good movie. Not on my list, just because I didn't have the nostalgic connection.
I know this was a later one for you, just as much as my number 1 was, but we'll get to that in a minute. Return of Godzilla to me is the kind of the foundation for how you bring back Godzilla after a long rest. You take Godzilla and you think about how would the modern day public react to this situation and to the return of this iconic, very, very having a long legacy character, and how does he fit into the modern day? How is he still relevant? What does his impact on modern day have as opposed to as it did years ago? You know, what does that mean? I think Return of Godzilla was the first and the best at doing that. It said, okay, Godzilla is a metaphor for the atomic age and the impacts that it had. What's going on now? Oh yeah, the Cold War and the ensuing, you know, conflict with the Soviets, and that is what's in the forefront, and it's incredibly relevant to Godzilla's reappearance, and it's fucking awesome. My favorite scene in the whole movie is that UN conference where they're talking about how they're going to deal with Godzilla, and there's that great scene where like every aspect of Godzilla returning in the 80s is considered. What does it mean for the economy? Okay, if it's going to fuck up the economy for sure. So which one's going to fuck up the economy less? A bomb or Godzilla? Weigh our options. Probably the bomb. All right, so we deal with Godzilla however we do. What does dropping an H-bomb or an atomic bomb on Godzilla mean for the military? Well, they're probably just going to use them as a test run because they've never used them live before. It's all a bunch of tests. Like, the way you test something is use it in combat, and this is the perfect opportunity to do it because it would take more than one. What does that mean for politics? Well, they're basically using us as monkeys, so we don't want that. We want to look independent. So we definitely shouldn't do it. Great. All right, so our stance is we are going to fight Godzilla ourselves, and we fucking did it. Just really a fantastic, fascinating look at politics and how Godzilla plays into that. I'm a sucker for Godzilla's role in politics, just as much as I am a sucker for Godzilla's role in science, and there's a lot of that in this movie too.
May I just say, one of the best things you can do in a Godzilla movie is throw in a bunch of good ideas, and this movie's got that with the politics that you just mentioned. The idea of the giant sea louse, which I thought was great.
Genius, and not explained at all in the American version.
And I think, and also the connection between Godzilla and birds.
Interesting. I feel like it's a little weird, a little bit hokey, because it's not something that has ever been used before, and it's used as such a big Deus Ex Machina. I feel like it could have been done a little better, but it is a really good plot device.
Right. It's a genius idea, though, just because Godzilla is, of course, a dinosaur, and so there is
right. So you just have that connection with birds. Well, at least he was in that version, not anymore. Based on the origin for the new Godzilla.
Right. But exploiting the fact that Heisei Godzilla is a dinosaur.
Indeed. It was a really fantastic idea.
Also,
my favorite concept that had never been done before, but it's used really well in the Heisei series, is the idea of Godzilla metabolizing atomic radiation. It makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. And it's also a really good plot device to have him continuously attacking.
Right.
Rather than just spontaneously showing up to cause destruction. I mean, we could get into the metaphor and the character motivation of he's taking revenge, he's putting nature back in balance, but just as a sheer plot device, him needing radiation to metabolize is fascinating and makes sense. I mean, you've got this creature that is made immortal by this radiation, so it makes perfect sense that he would have to metabolize it to survive.
I mean, as people who have both written Godzilla things, I think we can both attest to the fact that the idea of him metabolizing nuclear radiation is a great thing to have in your Godzilla writer toolbox.
It is. It's really, really helpful in terms of coming up with reasons for Godzilla to do stuff.
I'm a sucker for great ideas like that in terms of writing, because I look at it and I think whoever came up with that is a genius, because you open up so many doors for yourself.
Right. Well, indeed, and that's what coming up with a lot of great ideas in Godzilla movies is about, is you open up a lot of different possibilities for this character who has been around for a long time and a lot has been done with him. I think that's the mark of a character that lasts for a long time, is you just fucking open up any possible idea that can be done with this character. Alien battles, alright, what can we do with that in terms of Godzilla? Okay, atomic radiation, what can we do with that? All this different stuff. It allows you to keep a franchise going for 60 years like Godzilla has.
One that was thrown out in the show series, a great idea that has been utilized again and again and again, that I will get to later on the list, is the idea of monster control.
Indeed, monster control.
To throw out a good example. But yeah, 84 packed with great ideas.
And I know we talked about this on the last SOS. I know Adam isn't crazy about the action scenes. I think they're really impressive. I love the scene where Godzilla raids Tokyo. I love the visual nature of it. I love the scene where he fights the military.
I will agree with Adam to a slight extent, because I do feel like sometimes the pacing is a tad slow.
He does seem to move a little slower than normal.
There are points in the attack sequence where it does drag a little bit. I think the whole problem with it is a pacing issue, but that isn't enough to make me hate it.
I think what you need is somebody to go in there with a pair of scissors and just cut things and move things to make it look like he's doing more damage.
The people who did the cut for Godzilla 2000 should take this movie and do something with that battle sequence, because I think it would be much better. But yeah, I really like the action sequence. I just think the pacing could use a little bit of improvement. Also,
it's a visually stunning film as well. I love the 80s, and I love 80s movies, and it's very much so a Godzilla movie made in the 80s, and I really enjoy some of the 80s-ness of it.
And given the fact that we only have 2 80s Godzilla movies,
and we'll get to the other one later.
Oh, I know we will.
that's another reason why I love it so much. Again, this was the fourth Godzilla movie I had ever seen. And, no, I had seen the original before that. Alright, it was my fifth Godzilla movie. No, wait. I don't remember. It was early. I was a kid.
Also, I love the introduction of the Super X, because we don't have a kaiju for Godzilla to fight in this. So the idea of for the military to have a secret weapon like that was really good.
Indeed, a very good plot device, and also a really cool fight scene.
And utilized to great effect in future Heisei Godzilla films, because you had the Super X 2 and 3.
There's this really weird idea, though, of Godzilla having green blood that I never liked. I don't like the idea of Godzilla having green blood.
No, he should just have regular red blood.
Red blood. Because dinosaurs did. And reptiles have red blood. They don't have... I mean, that's always been the stereotype of making them seem less human, but reptiles don't have green blood.
Yeah, reptiles and birds both have red blood. Therefore, it is pretty safe to assume that the evolutionary link between them would have the same color blood.
Interesting thing, though. Technically, blood isn't red on the inside of you.
No, it's blue.
Yeah, which is bizarre.
So unless the radiation affected his blood cells, which would be a terrible explanation just for him to have green blood, they should be red.
It just seems like a weird stretch to make the blood green. Why not just keep it red? But anyway, that's my... The other weird thing about the scene where they show him bleeding is that... sorry, I just dropped something. Is that they use the classic... Because obviously, another thing I really love about this movie is the new version of the roar, with kind of a mix of the classic roar and the original roar, where it's the deep kind of bellowy thing mixed in with the high-pitched screech. And I really enjoyed that remake of it.
Right.
What's weird is how they use the classic roar in one scene, where they just use the straight-up classic roar when Godzilla gets hit by one of the blasts, and... Like, it's almost like a cry of pain, but his mouth isn't open.
Right.
So you see him get shot, and it's like, screech, and he's just standing like, what the fuck just happened? I've been hit.
I love the face on this suit, by the way.
Fantastic suit. It's again, I've said this before. It's the closest they ever got to recapturing what the original looked like. And it's a really good-looking Godzilla. Also,
you were talking a little bit ago about politics in Godzilla films. How do you like the introduction of like the Cold War stuff in this movie?
As I said earlier, it's fascinating, and I love one of the best. This movie also is really good at recapturing some of the horror aspects of Godzilla that we had kind of been missing in the 70s and 60s.
Right.
With Godzilla attacking the sub, and you never see Godzilla, and you just hear the Russians describe what's happening. It's a really creepy scene, and the whole idea of you can't escape because you're in a fucking submarine is terrifying. I mean, just think about it. It's like you're trapped in the submarine. There's this thing coming at you that you just can't seem to kill, and you can't outrun, so you're gonna die no matter what. I always just thought that was fascinating and really scary. I also adore the first time you see Godzilla in the movie, where he comes up out of the water. And you don't see him right away. You hear him moving through the fog, but you don't see him. Very, very creepy scene. But overall, I just think that this movie is fantastic. A great, haunting score. Very, very fitting for both the 80s and for this kind of rekindling of horror Godzilla. And also the ending is the ending theme, both the instrumental theme and then the following song are very, very fitting for both the tone and for the 80s. And also a fantastic ending. Also, let me just say this: love me some Hayashida. Hayashida's awesome.
Also,
so yeah, that's the return of Godzilla.
To say something of the American cut, though, way inferior. I do like them bringing back Raymond Burr. That was a nice touch.
That was genius. There's also some. The ending is better in the American cut, in my opinion. It's just more. It's a little bit more powerful. The American version isn't horrible. It's just they cut out a lot of what I like about the Japanese version, mainly the politics, and
well, to me,
out
the worst thing that they did is the change they made to the Russian line.
Oh, that was just fucking offensive.
That's a little bit inexcusable in my opinion.
I mean, it's indicative of the time that they were just angry with them. They always had to be the villains, but
at the same time, that this is an American movie. This is a Japanese movie. Let's not put our biases on them.
I totally agree with it. It was a really offensive and terrible thing to do. More than that, they also cut out. Here's the thing: there's a scene in the movie that bothers me to no end in the American cut where they find out about the Russian missile in space, and they go, "But that violates the UN Space Treaty." While in the Japanese cut, guess who also has a giant fucking nuclear missile in space?
America.
Now, I don't know the history. I don't know if that's true, but based on the Japanese version, if they did both have nuclear missiles in space, then fuck the American version. And
I think the point in the Japanese version would be that both sides are violating the treaty.
The idea is that humanity in general is fucked up. You don't need any people to be the bad guys because the big threat is fucking destroying Tokyo right now. You don't need one of these nations to be seen as the bad guy. The other thing is that they have to cut out a lot of the politics because a lot of the politics make America look like fucking idiots. In the Japanese version,
yeah, with
America wanting to use Japan as a testing ground, as kind of a using it as a testing ground, but saying it's not for their nuclear weapons with Godzilla.
But to me, the best thing, the biggest saving grace about the American cut is
Raymond Burr.
It is due to the American cut that we have the gift to humanity that is the Godzilla Dr. Pepper commercials.
That too. Also, I also enjoy. Again, I love that ending with Raymond Burr's narration. Going over the image of Godzilla returning to the volcano. It's just a very poetic way to end Godzilla's return. I was going to say something else about the American... Oh, also they cut out one of my other favorite scenes in the movie, where Hayashida goes to Okumaru. He's called Ken in the American cut. I have no idea why. And he just shows him a bunch of pictures because he's telling the story about this monster, and Hayashida has a theory about what the monster is, and we don't know. No name has been said yet. And he's flipping through pictures. I mean, we have a vague idea, but we don't know. And he's flipping through pictures, and he goes, "Yeah, that's it." And then Hayashida's like, "Are you sure?" And he nods. And then they just cut to this image of what he's looking at. He's looking at a bunch of pictures of Godzilla. So I always thought that was fantastic, and they cut that out of the American version, and it just kind of amplified the horror of the whole thing. So
yeah. This is a little bit off topic, but since we're talking about Godzilla in the 80s, did you ever read the script for that 3D movie that was scrapped?
No, David sent it to me. I never got the chance to read it, though.
I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. It's not fantastic because it's a little bit of a Gorgo ripoff.
So I've heard. How is Godzilla characterized in it?
I don't get the sense, and this is one of the problems with it. I wouldn't have loved this movie if it had come out. I just think it would have been interesting to have seen it.
Especially seeing the images that we saw of the suit, which I don't like at all.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. I don't get the sense that he doesn't have as much of a personality, and I don't get the sense that he's like the big force of nature that he should be. He feels just more like an animal doing his...
A lost dinosaur. He looks and sounds pretty close to Zilla.
He's more or less just an animal doing his thing, which is pretty much what Zilla is, yeah. It would have been the Zilla of its day had it been made, but I think it would have been a little bit better, because I did read the script, and I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would. I don't know. It's a strange project. You should read the script at some point if you get a chance, because... I would love to hear your take on it. They kind of do the Gamera thing in it, too, because there's this little kid in the movie who's obsessed with lizards and has a pet lizard.
Oh, that's weird.
It's like they take Godzilla.
It's bizarre, though, because, we're talking about this a week before we're going to go see the new Godzilla. It kind of feels like they're taking some ideas from that script and incorporating it in the new Godzilla. Because isn't the idea that they were this species of dinosaur that metabolized radiation?
Yeah. I don't remember the exact explanation, but yeah, they were like a species of, I don't even know if they called them dinosaurs. I think there was another word that they used, but a species that was like from the dawn of time that could survive radiation and what have you. So yeah, that's an idea that they might have taken some inspiration for that when coming up for the origin for the new movie. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Though it also seems to be more linked with the original in terms of Godzilla being awakened by the H-bomb, which is not the idea in the new one, right? Or not in the new one, in that 80s script.
No, I don't think so.
So he just showed up randomly?
He showed up for a reason. I just don't remember. It's been a while.
Did it have anything to do with atomic testing?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I'm sure in some...
There's a young Godzilla in it, though, right? And the whole idea is that he's looking for his kid?
Yeah, that's why it's kind of a Gorgo ripoff.
Right. But what happens with the kid?
The kid, if I'm not mistaken, the kid's actually dead, but Godzilla comes looking for it anyway.
Oh, is that true?
I think so. I think what happened is that the military had found the kid's dead body, like washed up somewhere, and then Godzilla come looking for it. I think that's actually the reason why he appears. He come looking for the kid.
Oh, but they would have had to explain why all of a sudden these fucking giant dinosaurs came out of the ocean.
Yeah. I got to read it again to tell you the truth. But
I really want to read it because I was always intrigued about how. Because I'm just interested in bizarre takes on Godzilla.
Yeah, I kind of want to read the scrapped '94 script too.
I haven't read that either. Which that also seems to be part of the inspiration for the new one. Which
from what I've heard,
they seem to be taking the right things. It's not like Godzilla was created by an ancient civilization.
Right.
No, that's just. The idea seems to be that he's awakened for a purpose.
From what I've heard of the '94 script, I think I will like it a lot more than I did the '80s script. It's strange though. It's strange because I don't hate the '80s script. I know I wouldn't have liked the movie though. Like, you know what I mean? I think if it had been made at the time, I think if it had been made at the time the way that they wanted to make it, we would have hated it. But to look back on it in retrospect, being that it's
the fact that it didn't happen,
yeah.
You can't hate something that never got made. It's just not okay. You know what I mean?
The fact that it's a scrap project, it no longer becomes something that is a terrible idea. I mean, it is, but it more becomes a novelty, really. To read it.
Yeah, there's no threat of this being canon or anything, so who cares? It's just kind of a fun, interesting side slant of this is what could have been. And you just it's almost like looking at it's kind of like looking at a car accident, you're just in awe of it.
Right.
But anyway, what's your number 2, sir?
Okay, moving on to my number 2. Another example of a movie that's on here because of how much I rewatch it, of how freaking fun it is. Heavily flawed, but I don't care. My number 2 on this list is GMK.
GMK is heavily flawed to you?
It has a lot of problems, I think.
I'd love to hear them. It's not. Don't worry, it's not in my top 5. I just want to hear.
The whole problem of how and you've stated this before. You know how it kind of leans too heavily on American horror movie trope.
Oh, okay, that bugs the shit out of me. Yeah.
Yeah. That part specifically is what detracts from it, in my opinion. But for the most part, I love the hell out of GMK.
Yeah, it's a great Godzilla movie.
It rides the line. It is over the top fun the way Final Wars is, but at the same time, it's got other stuff going on too. So it's not in that same category. It's not just fun.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of exploration of the metaphor of Godzilla. Because it's a bizarre version of Godzilla.
The idea that he is the 54 Godzilla, resurrected by the souls of the dead soldiers from World War II. So basically a zombie Godzilla is very...
Ghost Godzilla, if you will, finally seen on the big screen.
Is very interesting.
Bizarre as all hell, but interesting.
I love the suit. I know that some people don't like the suit. I think it has a bit of a potbelly going on, but other than that, I really like the suit.
Yeah, I love the suit as well. I do think it's a little chunky, but it looks awesome.
I love how expressive he is.
And it's bizarre because he's one of the most expressive Godzillas, but he has no pupils.
Yeah, it's all in to me, it's all in his facial expressions, the way,
and all in the eyebrows, very expressive eyebrows.
The way his eyebrows and his cheeks move, great stuff. Some great animatronics there. It used to bug the hell out of me when I was a child. It used to bug me that King Ghidorah was a good guy.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
It's still kind of a problem.
It doesn't bother me anymore, because this is so obviously an alternate continuity. When I was a child, I didn't have as much of a good understanding of the idea of an alternate continuity, which is probably why it bugged me to the degree that it did.
It actually bugged me less as a kid than it does now.
Really?
It kind of bugs me more now. It's just a weird idea, and it could have been. It was supposed to make a lot more sense because it wasn't supposed to be Ghidorah.
Right.
My other problem with it is just he dies so many fucking times, and even when he comes back to life, he still is not the thing that kills Godzilla. The thing is that it's a geniusly conceived movie, and very well executed. I feel like some of the ideas are just kind of bizarrely concluded, like the whole idea of these guardian monsters being resurrected to kill Godzilla, but they're not the ones that do it.
Right. That's why I say it's a flawed movie, because
it is, and I'm sorry I jumped on your throat right away. I should have thought about it, because I'm like, yeah, it kind of is.
It has some great ideas, but the execution doesn't always follow up to the degree of the caliber of the ideas. A lot of it is a problem with, in terms of the writing, I suppose. I guess is where
there are some strange lines. Also, very interesting. There's also, they never really explain the doctor dude. And I know the whole theory is that he's supposed to be Serizawa, which I still don't 100% buy.
No, I don't really buy that. I just thought he was somebody from World.
Doesn't he make more sense to be Yamane?
To me, I thought he was somebody from World War II.
No, they say he clearly fought in World War II, but they say he died in the first Godzilla attack.
Oh. Yeah, so I think it would make more sense. Out of the two, it would make more sense for him to be Yamane, but I never really got the sense that he was either of them.
But it kind of makes sense if he was one of them.
Yeah, it would.
He's clearly supposed to be somebody.
It would.
But it would also make sense if he was Serizawa, because he's supposed to have been a World War II veteran and a doctor.
Well, wait a minute. He can't be Yamane, because Yamane didn't die in the first Godzilla attack.
And also didn't fight in World War II, because he still would have been an old man. Okay,
so if he is one of somebody from the original movie, I suppose Serizawa makes the most sense.
Yeah. I don't know if that's exactly what's going on, because they give him a different name and he looks nothing like Serizawa, and also he didn't die. He technically didn't die in the first Godzilla attack. He died at the same time as Godzilla.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I suppose him being the one. It also, the more I think about it, the more it does make sense. It's just the movie doesn't present it in a very clear way. Since think about it this way: Serizawa was the one who killed Godzilla, and when Godzilla returns, he also comes back from the dead to stop him.
Right. The things about, since we've been talking about the flaws, the things about the movie that I love.
Yeah, indeed.
The score.
Excellent. Kawatone is a genius.
I could listen to that for days. Oh my god, that theme.
Yeah, same here. It's a fantastic score.
That theme, and at the end when they bring back the classic
Oh
score.
god, yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I've kind of, and I still hold out hope, though I'm confident they're not going to do this. I kind of wish that's what they would have done with the new Godzilla, where they have the new theme coming in over the credits.
Yeah.
Or not the new theme, the old theme. I'm sorry, it's late.
We touched on this a little bit with Godzilla Suit, but the effects in it are very good.
The effects are fantastic. Baragon looks as good as he's ever going to look.
Oh yes. Good action sequences. There's a specific shot of Mothra that I always loved. You know the shot where she's flying and then all of a sudden she stops, and like it's a strange. I can't really describe it, but there's a scene where she like stops and like her wings, and she just. Anyway, it's a beautiful shot. Great effects in the movie. And also, I love how dark the movie is. It's pretty.
It is a very dark movie. Yeah.
It's freaking dark.
A lot of people die.
A lot of people die.
They show children whose parents are dead. It's a great movie. It is bizarre though. It's a very strange Godzilla movie. The more you think about it, and I think that's why a lot of people have a hard time with it. Mm-hmm. But I have a very bizarre Godzilla movie coming up on my list, so I'm all for bizarre. It's in my honorable mentions. I considered putting it on here, but it's not one that I rewatch a lot.
GMK. Yeah, I find myself rewatching it a lot, and I'm not sure why. Besides the things that I just mentioned, there's something about it that hits me in the right way, personally.
I also think a lot of people, and I'm included in this, are such big fans of Heisei Gamera that this movie kind of stands out as being kind of the dream Godzilla movie.
Yeah. But see, I saw this movie way before I saw any of the Heisei Gamera films myself.
No, I had already been a fan of Heisei Gamera by the time I saw these.
So I didn't really have that. For me, it was the opposite way. For me, watching Heisei Gamera was like watching GMK again.
Oh yeah, I had already. Well, I hadn't seen Iris, so Iris is the closest to GMK.
Hmm.
So that was always interesting to me. But I love GMK. Again, I agree with you. It does have some strange flaws to it that very easily could have been fixed, which I think is why they're easy to overlook.
Mm-hmm. But part of me wishes that I could see the original concept that they had in mind with Anguirus.
Oh, God,
and
that would have been awesome.
Wasn't the third one Varan?
Yeah, it was supposed to be Baragon, Anguirus, and Varan.
I think I might have done Rodan, because what can you really do with Varan?
Well, Shizuke Kaneko was a big Varan fan.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Varan fan. A fan.
A fan of Varan. A Varan fan. It almost sounds like you're saying Duran Duran.
It almost sounds like Duran Duran. I'm a fan of Duran Duran. I'm a fan of Varan.
I wonder if Duran Duran are Varan fans.
I don't know. We should go ask them.
We should be like, hey, Duran Duran.
And also why they lip sync so much.
We should be like, hey, Duran Duran, are you a Varan fan? No, what?
You want to get in my van?
Like,
my Varan van?
You'd be like, no, what is Varan?
what? No. What's the Varan? Because they're British.
I'm just gonna be like, you know what?
Oh, what's the Varan, yeah?
You know what? I'm just gonna go dance into the fire.
Dance into the fire. Mm-mm. Oi, I'm a fan of the Varan fan. Ooh. Or Rodan kills the fan in the Varan fan.
I don't know if you have any titles in mind for this episode, but may I submit Duran Duran the Varan fan?
No, I like the idea of hopping the Varan van.
Duran Duran the Varan fans and their
van
van
with Varan on the side of it.
No, Duran Duran the Varan fans in their Varan van.
That might be a little long. The Duran Duran Varan van.
Fan. No, the Duran Duran Varan fan van.
I love it. That's it. That's the title. Oh, God, I love alliteration. We should drive out to G-Fest in the Varan fan van.
You should buy a van, and you should deck it out like Varan, and it would be...
And we will only play Duran Duran music. We get one of those epic, like, fucking 80s, like, spray paint jobs on the side of the van.
It would be a great joke, but it would get old by the time we got there.
Like, it would be awesome for, like, an hour, and then we get sick of it real quick.
This is a 14-hour drive.
Yeah. Get sick of it very fast. But anyway, we on my number 2?
Yeah, I think I've spoken my piece.
My number 2 we already talked about, but I have some more things to say about it. My number 2 is 1964's Mothra vs. Godzilla. God, do I love this movie. My favorite film of the Showa era. Kind of, in my opinion, the most classic Godzilla movie aside from the original. I think this was the most important defining Godzilla movie to come out of the 60s. It kind of defined how you make a Godzilla movie, and you kind of touched on this earlier. It kind of is the beginning of all of the classic Godzilla tropes, the monster fight, using monsters against each other, Godzilla being this badass force of destruction, the military using elaborate means to try and kill Godzilla, the ending fight, all this different stuff. It's just a really, really strong entry in the series, and I love the characters, and very, very imaginative, but also very grounded. It's just a fantastic film. I'm not sure if I have much else to add that you didn't already say, you fucking bitch. No, I'm kidding. Alright. It also manages to, another thing I really like about the movie is the Godzilla suit's fantastic. The special effects in general are absolutely amazing. And, it just feels like after King Kong vs. Godzilla, the bar had been raised because of how successful that film was. And no matter whether or not you like that movie or not, it was incredibly influential on why this movie got made and why this movie was so successful and why it looks so good. And whether or not you like King Kong versus Godzilla, Mothra versus Godzilla wouldn't have happened without it. And I know almost every single Godzilla fan loves this movie, so I'm included in that, and it's just really good. I love what's his name? Sakai. Sakai is the main character, played by, of course, classic Godzilla actor Akira Takarada. And he's a really fun character, incredibly likable, very sympathetic on how he's a very, very moral person living in an amoral world, which is shown by his interaction with the twin fairies and with the business dudes played by Kenji Sahara and that other dude. And it's just very, very likable and very, very fun to see, and it's a very fun movie while also managing to retain some of the dark elements of earlier Godzilla stuff, since Godzilla still hadn't totally gotten away from that. We'll say what you want about King Kong versus Godzilla, but, they still hadn't quite gotten away from it, especially in this film. And the example of that is you've got this there's a couple of examples of it. There's obviously you got the businessmen being greedy and shit, and you've got, thank God you're back, I'm dying out here. I'm kidding. I'm doing fine. I was just talking about how the movie is incredibly fun while also retaining some elements of darker Godzilla stuff. Like you've got a lot of people dying and destruction, and obviously the stakes are very high.
I don't know if you already mentioned this, but you've got the Mothra dies.
I didn't mention that yet, yeah.
You've got what I already mentioned before about Infant Island being a radioactive waste. I think it's
potentially the darkest scene in the movie, and the darkest concept of holding a grudge, which was a really dark notion of like, we're not going to help you because you fucking destroyed our island.
I don't know if you have this, but one thing that always stuck with me is the Infant Islanders chanting.
Very, very eerie. Also, Mothra going out to help these people, even though she knows she's going to die. Very, very kind of inspiring, even though this is a giant bug. But also very, very powerful, because it's like, the twin fairies say that she's gonna die, but she's doing it just to help you guys. So
Mothra has always astounded me by how much it can make me root for a giant bug.
This is something you didn't mention earlier, and I kind of touched on, but I want to talk about it a little more in depth. Fantastic Godzilla suit.
Oh yeah. Oh
shit!
Yeah.
Is this Godzilla suit awesome? Fan favorite, deserves to be that way. He looks pissed.
I love his eyebrows, and I don't think there's another Godzilla suit that utilizes these kind of eyebrows.
I love the mouth, just the way the jowls quiver whenever he roars. Really, really cool looking, and also he just looks pissed, and he's a badass. He's just fucking shit up.
This is the last time that we have evil Godzilla, before he starts to become sort of an anti-hero in the next movie.
Right. The next movie was the big turning point, but this is the last time we had
and you could
bad, destructive Godzilla, and he causes a lot of destruction in this movie.
He does. He fucks shit up. And from the moment he has that amazing entrance, one of my favorite Godzilla entrances, to the end, he is just. I don't know if he. The destruction in this movie, I think, rivals 54. He destroys so much stuff. Not quite as much gets destroyed, but there's a lot of what does get destroyed gets leveled. In terms of sheer spectacle.
Indeed, I agree. And I think part of that is the score is just on par with 54 and how fucking good it is. It's a really good Godzilla score.
Okay, this is an example of Ifukube, like at his best.
At his peak. And what was good about it was he had a couple years to experiment with what a classic Godzilla soundtrack should be. And the other reason why this movie is so important is because this is kind of the foundation of how the rest of Godzilla sounds.
It's that way with a lot of things. It's like I said regarding the monster fights. It's the same way with the music, is that this is sort of where they perfect all the stuff that they were experimenting with before. And they do so marvelously.
It's just a good flick, man. It's a really fun, very, very powerful, socially relevant in many ways. Just a good movie. And holds up extremely well.
And it's got
also fantastic special effects all around. The twin fairies are amazing.
Also, it has the Peanuts in it. Everyone loves the Peanuts.
Yeah, not Charlie Brown, the band.
Right. What if Snoopy was in this movie?
Snoopy Snoopy fighting Godzilla, or Snoopy as the Red Baron fighting Godzilla?
Snoopy as the Peanuts companion, who aids Mothra in battle in his biplane
by shooting at Godzilla.
Somehow, unlike all the other planes that have fired at Godzilla, the fucking jets out there, his aim is true.
Fucking Snoopy kills Godzilla with a fucking biplane, where meanwhile the Americans are fucking owning Godzilla with like these torpedoes that are like state of the art and it's not doing shit.
Precisely.
Also, interesting thing, the American version of this movie also holds up very well because it's got a scene in it that they cut out of the Japanese version.
Yeah, this is one of the examples of an American cut that holds up very well.
With the torpedo, like, that scene is amazing, where the American Navy comes in and starts launching these torpedoes at Godzilla that, like, obliterates the beach. It's at night, and Godzilla's, like, walking just like, dun, dun, da-da-da, slowly but awesomely, and these torpedoes do nothing.
Yeah, I really love that scene, so 9 times out of 10 I do watch the American version because of that.
And again, it's an example of a Godzilla. It's a Godzilla attack scene that takes place at night, which was rare in the '60s. Almost everything took place during the day.
Do you know why? And I'm sure this was probably covered on the commentary because the Toho Masterworks commentaries are amazing. But do you know why they cut that scene?
Yeah, because they didn't want to show that the Japanese were relying on Americans.
That's stupid.
That makes no sense, but you know that's why they did it. They just felt like they were portraying the Americans. It's like, oh, will you Americans come help us? We can't fight our big bad monster. That was the whole idea. So they decided to cut it, which I think is still stupid because it's like that's not how it comes off. It's like, we can't take this thing down, and you've got a, admittedly bigger, badder army, so come shoot this thing. Also, you created this motherfucking thing, so you better come over here and take care of it.
Yeah, to me, it seems like America would have a vested interest in fighting Godzilla anyway, because as the new movie is about to demonstrate, we're on the Pacific Ocean, too.
Yeah, and as the new movie is about to show, like, it's an equal threat to us as it is to them, because we're just we're a hop, skip, and a jump away.
Anytime Godzilla could decide to swim the other way.
Indeed. I mean, it's in his territory, and also, it also makes perfect sense in the movie why he attacks the city he's seemingly going to attack. It's the closest American city to Japan.
Yep.
So, better watch out, America.
Yeah, especially you, Hawaii.
Oh, Hawaii looks like it's going to get fucked up.
You better guard your airports.
Oh shit. Oh, that was a reference to the movie. I thought you were referencing Pearl Harbor for some reason.
No, because Pearl Harbor isn't an airport, Bill.
No, that's right. I'm sorry. That's right.
I could have made a Pearl Harbor joke, but that would have been in bad taste, you sick fuck.
Oh, yeah. Too soon, right?
Too soon.
Too tsunami, yeah.
Too soon.
Too soon to make a Pearl Harbor joke, yeah. Definitely. I'm sorry. My bad.
It will never be soon enough to make a Pearl Harbor joke.
Oh, all right.
It's like the Challenger or 9/11. You don't make those jokes. I can say the most horrible.
Even the South Park guys were like, "All right, we need to take a break for a little while."
I could say the most horrible, like, racist thing I want, and then follow it up with a Pearl Harbor or a 9/11 joke, and that would be me going too far.
Yeah, that's crossing a line. Yeah. Anyway, Dylan, what's your? I guess we're hopping to our number one. Do you want to throw out some honorable mentions, though?
Honorable mentions. Most of my honorable mentions are ones that you've actually had on your list. 2000, 84. One that I'm pretty sure you're gonna have on your list, so I'm not gonna mention it.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Because I have a pretty good feeling what your number one is, Mr. Worcester.
Do you really, Dylan? Do you think you got it?
You
think you got what it takes?
I think I do. But let's see, are there any other honorable mentions? The Mechagodzilla movies from Heisei. I mean, not Heisei, I said movies, Millennium.
Yeah, those are great.
Heisei also, that Mechagodzilla movie is very good. There are no bad Mechagodzilla movies.
No, not really. Well, no, not at all. Terror of Mechagodzilla?
He's a character with a great track record.
Terror of Mechagodzilla is in mine. King Kong vs. Godzilla, GMK. Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah is one that neither of us have mentioned yet. I love that movie to death.
Oh, yeah. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster.
Year of the Three-Headed Monsters is in there for me. Let's see, what else did I not mention? Godzilla vs. Destroya, I just didn't put on there for the reasons I mentioned earlier. What else?
When we say that the original is the automatic number one, that is, of course, referring to 54. Therefore, I would like to give an honorable mention to King of the Monsters for having Raymond Burr and actually integrating the Japanese footage with the American stuff very well. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, very impressive in a very impressive way. And creative way. It was extremely ambitious to do that on such a shoestring budget.
And despite being vastly inferior to the original, and I think it's become fashionable to sort of shit on King of the Monsters in recent years, it's still a very good movie in its own right, I think.
Yeah, the only problem is that it cuts out some of the details, and that's really it. I mean, it's just the lack of detail. The fact that we have access now to the original makes us kind of like make the lack of detail seem more problematic than it actually is.
Yeah, because
what also people forget is that King of the Monsters is a very creative storytelling piece in general.
It is. I mean,
in terms of the flashback nature of it, the narration is very interesting. It's just an interesting take on that story.
I mean, it has to be a good movie because it got the American audiences, didn't it? It did its job.
And also, in a way, it's also kind of the first introduction of the name Godzilla being put on a poster, so...
Yeah. Because, it was in Japan, it was still Gojira.
Well, and technically it's the same thing, but we've never had that spelling.
Technically, if
it weren't for King of the Monsters.
As David Callett goes into great detail about it, is the same thing.
It's just a matter of pronunciation. It's technically the same word. Gojira or Godzilla or Gojira.
Usually, if I'm writing something in the Godzilla universe, I like to pretend that they're two separate things, just because it's a nice little writing thing to be like, oh, the Japanese called it Godzilla, but then the Americans call it Godzilla. It's a neat idea. Gojira, and then the Americans call it Godzilla. But in all reality, it is the same thing.
Seems like the new one is going to have that too, where it seems like Gojira is going to be the original Japanese sea legend, and the Godzilla is going to be the modern name for the creature.
That's one of the few nice things about 98 is the...
Yeah, 98 made a joke about it, and I was like, they fuck it up because they call him Gojira. I don't know what the fuck happened there, but it's a nice attempt.
Yeah, the idea is actually in 98 that the Japanese called it Gojira, and then Godzilla is actually just the American interpretation.
We'll do that in the animated series, too.
Yeah. So, so I wanted to give that an honorable mention as well for...
Yeah, it's a good call. I should have thought of that, but yeah.
Is there anything else?
Final Wars I didn't put on my list, but obviously we mentioned it. What else hasn't even been addressed?
Destroy All Monsters, I think, deserves an honorable mention.
Yeah, I find Destroy All Monsters a bit problematic because it's just not about the monsters.
It is, but the reason I give it an honorable mention is that it is the...
It is also, it's important. And also some amazing special effects and cinematography.
It's the original monster mash. In all the movies previous, it was Godzilla would fight like one monster at a time.
Astro Monster, I love.
Astro Monster, yeah.
More so as being influential, but also it's just a fun movie. I just didn't put on here because it kind of... we talked about this in another episode, but I kind of feel like it, it's not really about Godzilla, and there's some odd pacing issues, but it's a really fun movie, and the characters are very likable.
Did you already give an honorable mention to 91?
Yes.
Okay then. Okay. Now, honorable mention to Godzilla vs. Gigan for me enjoying it a lot more now than I used to.
Likewise as well. I didn't say that because we mentioned it earlier, but way to be irrelevant, Dylan. No, I'm kidding.
Indeed.
I think that's all we could... I think we've mentioned almost every single Godzilla movie.
That deserves one. Yeah, I don't think there's much...
The entire franchise.
I don't know if there's much more that we could mention honorably.
No, the only two that we haven't mentioned... Well, I mentioned one. I know what your number one is. I think you know what my number one is, so let's not beat around the bush anymore. Dylan, what's your number one?
Wait, you think you know what my number one is?
I have a feeling.
Do you?
Want to guess each other's number ones? It's pretty fucking obvious. I mean, it's like... Alright, I'll guess yours. I'm going to hazard a guess to say that your number one is Terror of Mechagodzilla.
My God, Bill, you do know me.
And would you like to hazard a guess what my number one is, Dylan?
I think your number one might just be Godzilla vs. the Little Shop of Horrors, otherwise known in America as Godzilla vs. Violante.
Oh, you clever bitch! You're absolutely right. It is Godzilla versus Biollante. Oh, look at you. So Dylan, why is Terror of Mechagodzilla your favorite Godzilla picture?
It's my second favorite Showa film. I rewatch it a lot. It's so good. I like GMK. I love the score, and a score that I love goes majorly for me in terms of points. It's got so much. You were talking about the explosions in the previous film.
Oh, God, yeah.
Good God, the action in this movie is fantastic. The story is good. I love Mifune and Katsura and all that stuff that's going on. I love Titanosaurus. I want him to be in more things. But overall, I have such nostalgia for this movie, such overwhelming nostalgia, that aside from it being a great movie, that's the other. It's weird. It has everything that I looked for while I was making this list. It's objectively very good. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. I rewatch it constantly. It hits all the points that all the criteria for this list, and that is why I decided to put Terror of Mechagodzilla as my number one favorite aside from the original.
I love Terror of Mechagodzilla as well. It's incredibly fitting to be Ishiro Honda's last solo directorial job, also to be his last Godzilla movie. This was the last movie he directed by himself. He worked on a couple Kurosawa pictures after this, but a lot. And he also did some assistant directing. I think he had a producer credit on one of the Heisei movies too. He was also supposed to direct Mechagodzilla 2, but he passed away before he could do it.
My only nitpick with it is, and I love the aliens in this movie, my only nitpick is that they never bring up the fact that they're monkeys. Because
no, that's weird. They never bring that up. Visually stunning film. Very, very gritty. Which is interesting because it's the complete opposite of the previous film. But it makes a lot of sense.
It's got a sort of gritty beautifulness to it.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous movie. Just visually, you just want to wrap yourself in it. It's a different version of the 70s. Like, Mechagodzilla 1 is the flashy, almost Roger Moore, James Bond, comic book 70s. And then Terror of Mechagodzilla is kind of the 70s crime thriller.
Yeah.
Like a Taxi Driver or a Chinatown type of tone.
Which fits because it's a very dark story.
Very much so about, sacrifice and being selfish and...
I don't know if you can tell from my top three, but I enjoy a dark Godzilla story.
Indeed. I believe my list reflects that as well.
And it's definitely there in spades. Terror of Mechagodzilla is such a dark story. And
it's also interesting because Godzilla is not the thing that makes it dark.
No.
At all. He's kind of the bright spot of the whole thing.
Really, it's the story involving Mifune and his daughter and all that stuff.
And Mifune is really the keystone of why it is so good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything else is good too, but that's the reason why it's amazing.
I love the way Mechagodzilla is utilized in the movie. I love the moment where Godzilla rips off his head, thinking that will defeat him because
it's a great callback to the first one
because that's the way he defeated him in the previous movie. So naturally, he thinks, okay, I'll just rip the thing's head off, and then when he does, it has a second head.
Yeah, it's a really good, kind of funny moment. Also, we should mention the big boss himself, Titanosaurus.
Oh, I love Titanosaurus.
Titanosaurus is fucking awesome.
Why is Titanosaurus so underutilized, Bill? Why do we live in that world?
Why live in a Titanosaurus world? I don't know, man. I question that every day. Every morning I wake up, I'm like, why I don't have a girlfriend, and why isn't there more Titanosaurus in the world?
Yep, those are the big questions in life.
Those are the big questions you wake up every morning. He is a badass. I love his roar.
Yeah.
God, do I love his roar.
It's so echoey.
Very much so. Also very different from any other monster that we had seen before. It's interesting. His roar is unique, but if you think about it, it's kind of similar to, strangely enough, Gabara.
Yeah, it is in a way.
It's a high-pitched Gabara, which is why... And Gabara's roar is not horrible. But I like the high-pitched version of it more. Titanosaurus.
There's something... What was I about to say? There's something sort of almost, at least I picked this up. Do you get a sort of elephant-like quality to his voice, definitely the way it echoes?
clearly it was done using some kind of brass instrument.
And in that way, it almost reminds me of how Showa Gamera has that sort of elephant type noise to it.
Or Gorgo.
Or Gorgo, yeah. I like those sort of roars, the very echoey, high pitched but also deep in a way,
Right. I completely agree.
It makes for this unearthly sort of noise. I love the scene of him destroying the submarine.
Oh God, yeah, very well shot. Very evocative of the original Godzilla, which is interesting, and very fitting that it be Honda's last hurrah with this universe.
I love how friggin' big he is. Can you imagine what because Titanosaurus needs to be bigger than the other kaiju. I mean, he's called Titanosaurus for God's sake.
Right.
Can you imagine how big he would have to be in the legendary continuity?
Oh Jesus, because he is a little bit bigger than Godzilla, right?
Yeah, he's taller. He's a lot taller than like all the other kaiju. Him and Ghidorah are the two that like tower over everybody.
Right. Though Godzilla does kick his ass. The only problem I have with Terror of Mechagodzilla really is I feel like in some scenes it's a little bit. I feel like my biggest problem is lack of Godzilla.
That's fair. But when he when he shows up in a big way.
Oh, we're getting there. My other one is that his introduction is amazing and one of the best moments in the entire series, and that moment of just like Titanosaurus gets hit with the atomic blast and falls over, and you're like, what the fuck? And then Honda does this pan, and you just hear a fucking boom, boom.
Yeah.
And then an explosion. Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun. Oh, God.
It's another one
defining moment right
It's
there.
another one of my favorite Godzilla entrances.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
My big three are this one, the one from Mothra vs. Godzilla, and then interestingly enough, the one from Mothra and Godzilla, the Battle for Earth, when he comes out of the volcano. It's a great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'll get to my other one in my number one, but in Biollante, I love that shot where he comes out of the volcano. What was I about to say? Also, there's a great 360 shot, or I guess it'd be a 180 shot, where they pan around Titanosaurus and Godzilla in battle poses.
Yeah.
The shot ends with them colliding. My biggest problem is that the fight lasts for less than a minute.
Yeah, that is a problem.
It's very short, and it's a badass couple seconds, but it's too short.
But the scene,
especially how it's built up. Like Godzilla's built up like he comes in on the sonar, on the alien sonar, and their thing is like, oh good, it's Mechagodzilla's worst enemy.
To me, the most,
and it'd be helpful if we use Titanosaurus to wound him before Mechagodzilla fights him, which is not what happens at all.
To me, the most satisfying scenes in the movie is when Titanosaurus and Mechagodzilla are destroying Japan. You know, they're destroying the city and what have you. It's so interesting because here we are at the end of the Showa era, and it just shows how Godzilla's character has progressed, because that used to be him.
Right.
Blowing up the city and being a threat to humanity, and then now we have him coming in and saving the city, saving the day from other monsters.
It's kind of a circle. With him being on the completely opposite side of what he once was.
And at the end, he goes back to the sea in a beautiful shot, by the way.
Which is weird, because it wasn't supposed to be the end, and it seems like they knew it was going to be. I think it was because Honda knew it would be his last one.
Yeah, I think that's why they wrapped it up in that way, and so it kind of became fitting that wound up being the end of the show.
Yeah, however, it wasn't supposed to be, though. They were supposed to do a couple more after this.
However, it does sadden me that the movie didn't do that great when it came out, because it hasn't, not anymore, because now it's very recognized by the fans. It has a life of its own now. But for a long time, because of the way it performed in there originally, for a long time it didn't get the respect it deserved.
No, it's been kind of, it's definitely gotten a lot of praise now from fans, but yeah, it's still the lowest grossing Godzilla movie.
Yeah, much like your number one, it's a movie that was overlooked for a long time.
Not well liked and not very well performing. But with that being said, you got anything else you want to say about Terror?
It is terrifying. Okay, move on.
It is hard. Oh, well, I don't know why I just said that. It's awesome. Because you said terrifying, so I was about to say awful. Anyway, sorry. Again, it's late.
It's awfully terrifying, is what it is.
Indeed, it is. It's good bounce back.
Yeah. Oh! I almost forgot to mention one shot. One of the most iconic shots for me. The shot where you're in the alien's base and they pan up Mechagodzilla's body.
Oh, that was awesome.
They're reconstructing him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that shot so much.
Badass shot. Very dark movie in other respects as well. Like, I mean, we got a guy with his throat that's cut.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not for kids.
Alien General in the movie. I don't like him as much as the guy from the previous film, but I do like him quite a lot.
He's the same guy, too.
Yeah.
Well, he's played by the same actor. I don't know if he's supposed to be the same character. Probably not.
I thought, didn't the guy in the first one die? Didn't he?
He did.
Yeah, so it can't be the same guy.
I mean, it's the same actor, though.
Well, yeah. Maybe they all just look the same.
Oh, God.
Maybe this alien race doesn't have as much genetic variability as we do, and there are, like, templates.
Alright, so it's like Man of Steel.
Or maybe it's because they're actually monkeys, and so that's just that they use like you know how Terminators, they get their faces from an assembly line. Maybe that's what's going on.
Right. Maybe. Well, they're not. We don't know if. Well, whatever. We won't get into the science of this.
The science of the simians.
If you don't mind, what was that?
The science of the simians.
The science of the simians. The science of the simians is sound. Well, actually, it's not.
The science of the simians is not sound. The science of the simians is most unsound.
Indeed. Dylan, are you ready for me to get all fanboy for my number one?
Yes.
My favorite Godzilla movie ever, aside from the original in the history of history, is Godzilla Goes to College. No,
Oh, fantastic movie, fantastic. God, I mean, the one...
The themes in general, about love and loss and drug overdose.
The struggles of a young kaiju attending Kaiju University is unreal.
It is... Fuck, Less Than Zero. This is the Less Than Zero of Japan.
Indeed.
With Godzilla, the very tragic scene where Godzilla sucks dick for coke.
Oh yeah, and that's to say
horrifying scene.
That's to say nothing of his fraternity introduction.
Indeed,
what's it called?
The Omega Atomics. I don't know.
Indeed.
And they're crazy frat parties where they have atomic keggers.
My God.
They just down entire kegs of atomic waste.
My God, do I want to see this movie?
Right? We should make this movie, dude. But anyway, my number one obviously is Godzilla vs. Biollante from 1989. God, what can I say that I haven't already said? Incredible story. Just really well done, entertaining, packed with awesome ideas and awesome characters, fascinating, relevant concepts of espionage and government control, and using the idea of using biological warfare, and the fact that we have to be just as responsible with biological weapons as conventional weapons, and incredibly likable, entertaining characters, and very engaging storyline. A movie that entirely revolves around Godzilla, even if indirectly. I just always enjoy that. So, to me, this movie is just kind of a perfect storm of everything I love about Godzilla. But, more than that, Godzilla's a badass. Fucking comes out of a volcano like a fucking boss. And just roars at the camera and is just like, fuck you bitches, I'm back. Then proceeds to wipe out an entire naval fleet. And then proceeds to wipe out Osaka. So it's just a non-stop cavalcade of badassitude. And then let's not even get to, not to mention his adversary, also his, I suppose his evil doppelganger in the film, Biollante.
I don't remember, when he destroys Osaka, does he destroy that damn pagoda?
Yes, he does. No, they don't destroy it, but you do see it.
God, I love that pagoda.
Indeed. It's survived a lot. It's been through a lot over these past 60 years.
I want to see, you know that video where they do Godzilla's place in natural history or whatever? I want to see something similar, like the history of that pagoda. What's that pagoda?
But in the Godzilla universe where it's constantly destroyed and then rebuilt.
The history, the architectural history of that damn pagoda.
I agree, I want to see that too. But Biollante is... Biollante is just a great concept for a monster, and it was the first time that the idea of a monster being created from Godzilla's own loins was used, and it's just really, really interesting and really, really impactful in the story. And
yeah, but Biollante is great for two reasons. One, the idea of a plant kaiju is very good, and two, just the concept of having a monster created from Godzilla's cells and a monster that is born of Godzilla. So in a way, indirectly becomes part of the whole nuclear allegory, while at the same time having the whole man fooling with science thing going on as well.
Indeed.
Genius idea. Very creative, I will say.
Yeah, it's something that it's in every way, Biollante is something that had never been done before, and I think that's partially why it wasn't very successful, because it was something that nobody had really seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Godzilla monsters either came out of the abyss of the earth or from space.
And now this is an idea that gets used so often.
It's fine in the Heisei series, even though it wasn't very successful. It really shaped the entire series, and also partially the Millennium series as well, with Orga and Kiyu and
to a degree, Megaguirus.
So whether or not it was successful financially, it was very influential on the rest of the series.
Because at the very least, everyone understood that was a cool idea.
Right. Also, visually stunning. I love the dark grittiness of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
This was the same year as Tim Burton's Batman, and I think that it kind of has a similar dark nature to the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also the same year as the License to Kill came out, which is a Bond movie that I love, and it also very gritty. It was very indicative of kind of the gritty action tone that the 80s had taken with stuff like Commando and Die Hard and Rambo.
It's interesting that your favorite Godzilla movie, other than the original, has a similar aesthetic style to Batman '89. Considering your thoughts on that film.
Yeah, well, it's not like Godzilla's not fucking throwing people off buildings. And I love that movie aesthetically. I just hate the story.
No, Godzilla's knocking over buildings. It's worse.
No, but it's also that's what Godzilla does. If Batman had knocked over buildings in the comics, then it would be fine.
What if it had turned out that Biollante had killed Godzilla's parents?
Well, technically, Biolante's parents are also Godzilla's parents, so...
Whoa! Matricide.
Whoa!
Matricide and or patricide.
I was also always fascinated by the idea of Godzilla having a sister, which I know is not exactly what's going on, but just that idea always mesmerized me.
Yeah.
I thought they should have just stuck with that, because that's kind of a weird, kind of cool idea. This is also Miki Sugusa's first movie, and she's awesome.
Oh, yes, somebody who...
not to speak of the human cast, though, but there are a couple that I have strong feelings towards. I like the...
Do you have strong feelings towards the human cast in Biollante?
Yeah, I actually do. I enjoy Dr. Shiragami. I like Asuka. And she has a brother, I think. What was his name again, Dylan? I believe it started with a G.
I don't know, Gonzo or something?
Gondo! That's it! Fucking Gondo, motherfuckers! That's it. Gondo.
Oh, Gondo, yes, with a D, yes.
Fuck you. That's all you need to know.
Gondo.
The name's Doe. Gondo.
It rhymes with John Doe.
Fuck yes!
Gondo
is a pimp.
Gondo the John Doe.
Every action movie ever.
If you haven't noticed, audience, Bill has something of an affection for Gondo. Oh.
I do like me some Gondo. And I love him to death, and I'm glad that he was later referenced in Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla.
All the movies to put him
in. Right? I love Gondo. I also love Colonel Kuragi.
Actually, it's fitting that Gondo is mentioned in Space Godzilla, giving one of the explanations for Space Godzilla is being born.
Even though that one makes a lot less sense than the other one.
Yeah, I prefer the Mothra explanation myself.
Since you were going to say the mothball, I was like, what?
I prefer the mothballs.
I also the Mothra one just makes more sense because I mean, aside from the whole time travel shenanigans, it also just makes more sense because they went right up into space as opposed to whatever the fuck Biollante what happened to Biollante.
Mothra, we know for a fact, went into space. With Biollante, it's like she could have just dissolved in the atmosphere. For all we know.
And I mean, I guess you can make the argument that the movie shows that she went into space at the end with the flower bud that's in space at the end, but I think that's supposed to be more metaphorical than it is physical.
Think about that for a second.
Unless in this continuity, now there's just a fucking giant flower in space.
Think about that for a second. Biollante went into space. Sooner or later, she's going to land on a planet. Those poor aliens.
Holy shit.
That would be a great story. What if
I'm a mean green mother from outer space, and I'm bad!
Whoa. What if she went up into space, traveled to an alternate reality, and became Audrey 2?
Oh, shit! Oh man, that definitely happened.
Given the end, the deleted ending to the movie, it makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. There is no part of this that doesn't make sense.
Obviously not.
Don't complicate this with logic.
Don't complicate things with logic. Just don't do it. No, but that'd be an interesting story. Like, what happens when Biollante lands on some other planet and starts destroying an alien civilization?
Right.
And then they come, and then the alien civilization gets pissed and comes to Earth for their revenge.
I always thought that would have been an interesting origin for King Ghidorah. Was Godzilla cells like crash landing on another world and that turning into King Ghidorah? Somehow.
I'm fine with King Ghidorah not being grown from Godzilla cells.
Fair enough. Or just that happening with Space Godzilla would be cool too.
Yeah, that would be fine for Space Godzilla, especially if he landed on some like crystal like planet. Right. It would make more sense than, like, crystals come from black holes. Didn't you know that?
Did you know, young boy, that crystals are created in black holes?
No, I thought it was like coal, like getting compressed over time. Nope, it's black holes.
Oh, it's crystals!
It's black holes.
There's a really interesting video on YouPorn I'd like you to watch about black holes.
You see, all the stuff that goes into the black hole gets turned into crystals.
And also, turn shit into space shit. So if you get thrown into a black hole, you'll turn into Space Boy.
That's why crystals are so hard, because of the density created in the black hole, you see.
You see, the science is quite sound. Before we get more off track, though, I also love the idea of the anti-nuclear energy bacteria.
Oh, yeah, that's something that we utilize.
It's just a really cool idea to attack Godzilla on a biological level, which is a concept that's all over the movie.
Even though it's very pseudoscience-y.
Very scientific. Well, not exactly. I mean, there's a bacteria that eats crude oil, which is a real thing.
Yeah, but
so why not one that eats radiation?
Well, crude oil is a physical like object.
But the idea is that it consumes atomic waste.
Mm.
So the idea is you'd use it in a nuclear accident. So you'd put it in the water and it would eat up all the radiation.
I suppose if the bacteria absorbed the nuclear energy in a way similar to the way that certain bacteria photosynthesize, it requires more inquiry, but...
Well, the idea is that it's attacking Godzilla's ability to metabolize radiation.
Indeed.
It's turning his own ability against him. So it's kind of like an autoimmune disease where the immune system attacks itself.
It basically gives him indigestion.
No, not at all.
Godzilla defeats the ANEB with Pepto-Bismol.
No, you know what an autoimmune disease is?
Yeah.
Where the immune system attacks itself?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, where it's like the bacteria. I know it's a bacterial thing, and an autoimmune disease is a bacterial infection.
But it's not his immune system. You said it was his metabolism.
Well, it's the same idea, though, where his body is turning against itself.
But it doesn't fucking work.
Yeah, because he gets distracted.
They hit him with it, and then he gets back up.
No. You know why it doesn't work is because he cools himself down with the water. Because the only reason it works in the first place is because they raise his heat with the lightning.
Mm-hmm.
So the only reason it even works on him in the first place is that he gets heated up, and then he cools down, and the bacteria theoretically becomes dormant. So I suppose it could have killed him in the future, but who knows what would have happened with that?
He would have got Godzilla cancer.
Does time travel? No, it wouldn't have been cancer. Basically, it would have been Godzilla AIDS.
Whoa, Godzilla AIDS. The worst AIDS of all. Even more.
First, there was HIV. Then, there was AIDS. Then, there was Super AIDS. Now, coming to a strip club near you, Godzilla AIDS.
Much more deadly than the Super AIDS. Here comes AIDSzilla.
Da-da-da, da-da-da. Watch your dicks, men. And ladies, keep your holes covered. Don't let any crystals get in your black hole.
People with Godzilla AIDS may also suffer from radiation sickness.
So ironically, radiation will not help you in combating Godzilla AIDS.
Godzilla AIDS are not for women who are nursing pregnant or may become pregnant.
But anyway, just to wrap up, Biollante is an awesome movie, and you should watch it and love it and eat it up.
Indeed. Like 84, I don't know what it is about these early 80s movies, probably because they were so scarce. Or these 80s Godzilla movies, they're so scarce in America for so long. I never had the nostalgia for them. So much like Return, I love the movie, not on my list.
Yeah, it was a very early one for me, very defining. I give this movie a lot of credit for being the reason why I love action movies as much as I do, because it's kind of an action take on Godzilla with a lot of shooting and a lot of spy stuff and very Bondian Godzilla movie. So I love me some Godzilla vs. Biollante. Also, again, visually stunning and awesome soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Very indicative of the 80s.
Agreed.
But anyway, I think that's our list, Dylan. Anything else you want to say?
That was a list.
That was Dylan and I's top 5 favorite Godzilla movies.
As of today.
As of right now. As of this moment, those are our top 5 Godzilla movies. You got 10 movies. Well, no, not 10 movies, because there were a couple repeats. But
as of, because I know that you guys are watching this in the future, as of 1:40 Eastern Standard Time on the 9th of May 2014, those are our picks.
Indeed. Those are Dylan and Bill's. Those are the DFOS approved top 5 best Godzilla movies.
They will be different in the morning. I will not be updated.
Probably we'll wake up and realize, oh my god, what the fuck was wrong with us last night? All those movies suck.
They will change, and we will not keep you updated.
Indeed. We will just keep it to ourselves, and when you mention it to us in the future, we'll call you idiots.
It'll be interesting, and I think this is a conversation that we'll have to have after next week. It'll be interesting to see how Legendary's movie stacks up.
If it breaks this list?
If it breaks the list, or even if it... Just to see where we think it fits in...
If it even belongs in this franchise.
Yeah, where do we think it fits in the pantheon of Godzilla films?
Does it even belong in the same breath as the Toho Godzilla movies, as 98 doesn't?
Is it a 54 or a 98?
We'll see. I mean, so far so good, but who knows? I mean, Toho has said that they consider it part of their franchise, so...
That's that's the best sign.
Indeed. Toho has approved. Unlike 98, where they were like, alright, that's your Godzilla, we're gonna keep our Godzilla.
The trailers are very promising, but trailers lie.
Indeed.
Well, not so much lie as...
mislead.
Omit the truth.
But you can awaken the truth on May 16th, 2014.
I have watched a few clips, though, and the clips are good.
Yeah, they're I doubt... It definitely won't suck.
I don't think it's gonna suck.
I don't think it will. Now it's just a matter of taste. But anyway, I think that's gonna do it for this week's Godzilla thing episode of the Demons from Outer Space, where we talked about nothing but Godzilla.
And Duran Duran, the Varan fans in their Varan van.
The Duran Duran.
The Duran Duran
van.
Varan.
The Duran Duran Varan fan van.
Yes, exactly.
Dance into the fire!
Screw Duran Duran. This needs to be their new band name.
The Duran Duran van... No, wait. The Duran Duran Varan fan van. I can't even keep it straight.
Duran Duran and their Varan van fan.
Wait, the Duran van fan? Like a fan of... Like a fan of the Duran Duran Varan van?
No, I meant fan van. Whatever. They're a fan of the fan. They're
a fan of the Duran Duran fan van.
They are fans of Varan and Rodan, and they're in their fan van, and they're...
It's like a fucking Dr. Seuss book. Anyway, so next we meet, we will have seen the new Godzilla. So
indeed,
we probably won't shut up about that.
Although I guess we should try to keep from reviewing it too much because there'll be another World War G at some point.
Right, we'll do the next World War G. About the Godzilla film. I don't know when we're gonna do that, but it's coming up soon. Though. I will be posting a review before that.
The final installment of World War G.
Indeed.
Interesting that I guess you could consider it a mini-series that SOS and the spin-offs wound up growing out of is coming to an end now.
Right, it's going to be done. Well, until the sequels start to happen.
Everything we've done so far has been in anticipation of the new movie, so now it's going to be like the end of an era.
Right, it is. This is definitely a major turning point in the history of SOS. Because we kind of based our whole group on an upcoming movie, and now it's going to be a movie that's out, so it's going to be weird. It's kind of the penultimate chapter in SOS.
Now that the build-up is over, will the group stay together? Turn in next time to find out. Also something about Frieza.
Over 9,000! Anyway, so until next time, I'm Bill Worster.
I'm Super DM64.
And dem Germans, they be fucked up, but not as fucked up as dem space apes. You watch out for them space apes, you hear?
Oh, dem space apes.
Dem space apes!